Greetings, fellow Amblemites. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And SandyClaws.
And Wile too.
And welcome to season 3 of Spielberg
Month.
Da, da, da,
Not now. You guys are jumping the gun on it. You guys are jumping the gun on it. We do the da-da-da-da-da thing at the end.
I didn't want to make him feel alienated.
Okay.
I thought we did it at both the beginning and the end. I'm sorry.
No. Well, we do it at the end of this, and then the. Okay, you know what? Take two. We do it at the end of the intro and at the end of the outro. All right. Take two.
All right.
Greetings, fellow Amblemites. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And SandyClaws.
And Wile too.
And welcome to season 3 of Spielberg Month. Since Steven Spielberg doesn't do audio commentary on his own work, we thought we'd do it for him. After all he's done for us, it's the least we could do for him. Of course, we've selected 5 films from his vast catalog of work to commentate on. So let's adventure into the nostalgic and alien alike. And while you're on the hook, let's bridge the gap between history and cinema on Spielberg Month. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
You're just throwing it off. Go sit in the corner, Sandy.
Sandy, bad.
All right, folks. So today we're talking about The Adventures of Tintin, and this is a movie that I only saw once in theaters on Christmas Day, the year it came out. And ever since then, I've I've always had the desire to revisit it, specifically for Spielberg Month. That's why I haven't really rewatched it since then. Is that we really did kind of get the Spielberg Month thing going. I was like, well, if I'm going to revisit this movie, I'm going to revisit it Spielberg Month. And this movie has been on the docket for quite a long time. I believe we've been talking about doing this movie ever since season 1 of Spielberg Month. So this has been a long time coming. And I got to say, gentlemen, I fully expect myself to be the most negative person on this commentary because while I didn't hate this movie at all, I think I'm kind of like the closest person to having like a War of the Worlds type experience with it. It's not that it's a bad movie. It's just that, and I am absolutely sure that I would love this movie if I was a fan of the source material, but coming in blind from the source material, here's how I describe the plot of this movie. So this happens, and then they have to do this, and then they have to do this, and then they have to do this, and then this person comes, and then they have to do this, and then they have to do this. This movie is kind of I don't know. It's just, for me, it's got beautiful animation. It's got really good set pieces. And honestly, definitely the thing over War of the Worlds it has is really likable characters. I'll give it that much. But I feel like where War of the Worlds had really interesting kind of social commentary and big ideas behind it, this just kind of felt like, to me, this was kind of what Dragon was saying about like kind of Spielberg's biggest like obvious blockbuster without a lot of substance to it. I kind of had that experience with this movie a little bit. I was a little bit disappointed by it. Like I said, the characters are all very likable. The animation's crisp and beautiful. It's the plot that I have a problem with. The plot is just very, very episodic. It's hard to follow. It's like, for a treasure hunt movie, it's like needlessly complicated, I think. And I don't know. I think that's kind of like the big issue I have with it. And I gotta say, like, it's not a bad movie. I'd rank it about a 6 or 7 out of 10 for me personally. But for me, like I said, I'm curious to see Sandy's, because Sandy's a big fan of the source materials. I'm glad we have him on to be kind of like a yin and yang about this. But this was a disappointment for me, guys. I wanted to like this movie a lot more than I did revisiting it. I hate to say that. I really do.
Well, you're right about one thing, and that's the fact that basically there's a lot of material in the original books and in the original Canadian television series, and I feel like they were trying to cram too much into a small time frame, which basically resulted in this basically leading to that and that leading to that, basically what you were telling before. But
okay, you see, Spielberg, this is the movie that should have been 2.5 hours long, not Hook.
wait, this is not over 2 hours long?
No, this is like an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, yep. I never knew that. Okay.
That's because animation's expensive. That's why.
All right, go ahead, Sandy.
First experiences or?
Well, just overall, like, kind of thesis statement on the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, this whole thing originated from a story. What was it? I feel ridiculous now.
Secret of the Unicorn.
The Secret of the Unicorn. That's what it is. Thank you, Dragon. This was an original story by Herge back in the early days of the books, which was later translated into the Canadian television series, and then of course is made into this what I find quite charming, brilliant, beautiful movie. But no doubt is this movie not beautiful. It's absolutely, Tiki, even you agree this movie is absolutely dazzling as far as animation goes.
It's gorgeous for sure.
Yeah,
it's absolutely the best looking motion capture animated movie there's ever been.
Yeah. So the thing is with the original story, at least with I haven't read the book, but I know with the TV series, the Canadian TV series, this was I think this was a 2 or 3-parter. I think this is a 2-parter, and so they had more time to dissect things, and it was a Canadian series on a budget, just like any show back in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, and it definitely wasn't perfect, but again, I have not read the book, so I can't really compare these two to that. But basically, to wrap it all up, I think this definitely was a case of they had too much and they couldn't fit it into the hour and 40-minute time frame. But yeah, basically, I'll just do a quick synopsis of the movie here. Tintin finds a model ship, which he later tracks down to being a family origin to Captain Haddock, which he later meets about 2/4 way into the movie. And it turns out that there are this was actually the model ship of a real ship, which was captained by Haddock's great ancestor. Basically, it's a big treasure hunt story. They're all after the treasure. There's bad guys, classic Spielberg type bad guys. Just imagine Raiders of the Lost Ark with a few twists and turns here and there. Yeah, I'm going on now. Why don't you take it away, Dragon?
All right. Well, I remember I rented this from a Redbox the first time I saw it because I heard it got such good buzz. I heard like it was getting some of the best reviews. I had heard from some opinions that I trusted at the time, and I thought like, oh my god, I gotta look into this thing. I wasn't familiar with Tintin at all, aside from like a reference in Ted. It's like really all I knew about Tintin. It's like Mark Wahlberg's reading a Tintin book in Ted, and Seth MacFarlane mentioned this in the commentary. I was like, oh, Tintin, I guess it's like an American institution I just wasn't privy to. And apparently it's even more global than that, which is really impressive. So yeah, I've learned a great deal about Tintin, since then, since seeing the movie, and of course since I learned a little bit of it from Sandy, let's say. So yeah, Tintin. It's kind of interesting, and it's kind of the I guess kind of the Belgian kind of the Belgian comic strip. It's kind of the Belgian kind of Peanuts equivalent in a respect. It's kind of one of those famous strips, and kind of familiarized myself a little bit with the material. But even without that, again, just watching it for that first time, and really, it's been years since I've refreshed myself from start to finish on this movie since Netflix. I watched it and I was blown away by it and just kind of factoring more, because the first time I watched it, I was like, I kind of forgot that Spielberg had directed. And of course, knowing a little bit about the production before rewatching, like, okay, so it's kind of half Spielberg, half Peter Jackson. It's kind of a good marriage there. And so again, it was a really good rewatch. It was really a lot of fun, and felt kind of true to kind of felt like a Spielberg time capsule of a movie. I guess is not the best way of kind of summarizing it. Really impressed me, and I absolutely second. I believe Tiki, I believe you said this. I'd second whoever said this opinions of it. Feels like the best mocap move ever gotten. I think that's very accurate. I'm hard pressed to think of one that's been done better than how this one ended up. So again, I think I'm higher on the movie than Tiki is. We'll get into the reasons why. It's not perfect, but I think if you're a diehard Tintin fan, I think you'll find more of those imperfections. But again, just as kind of a casual fan, we'll see. So I had a lot of fun with that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really well made. I'd like to see Spielberg do more movies like this, honestly, because it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, we're supposed to be getting a sequel.
Yeah, and I'll get into that when we get into the backstory.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this is definitely very reminiscent of Raiders of the Lost Ark and really the entire Indiana Jones trilogy. I do know for a fact, I think that Hurge and Spielberg knew each other at some point in time, and basically,
Spielberg actually learned of Tintin because like a reviewer in the country compared it to Tintin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Hurge was basically he only trusted Tintin to Spielberg because he knew he could do it right. And I guess after his passing, some years ago, some decades ago, I think the rights probably just got tossed around here and there and ended back up with Spielberg, thankfully.
Yep.
All right, Jacob.
Well, like a lot of people, this is actually my first time ever hearing of Tintin. I've never actually heard of Tintin beforehand. And quite frankly, even afterwards, I never even read any of the comics, even though I have become familiar with the characters. So I'm not even familiar with the source material itself. But having said that, I like some of the names attracted to this feature, like obviously Spielberg and Peter Jackson, both filmmakers who I am very big fan of, and also obviously John Williams doing the music and everything. Usually some usual entourage and a lot of the interesting actors that's lined up for it. So I was actually quite interested in seeing how this would turn out. Having not known anything about Tintin is obviously a fresh experience for me. And going in there, like I said, I was actually very impressed with it too. It's how deft it was, how clever it was, how charming it was, and as you said, the animation was completely on point. As we keep saying, the animation was be hard pressed to find a motion capture movie done better than this one. And for being Spielberg's first animated feature, and so far his currently animated feature that he directed, he showed that he could definitely step into the medium quite well.
Isn't that funny to think that he's only directed one animated movie when we associate him with a lot of animation?
Yeah,
yeah, it is, especially American Tail of anything. It's.
I mean, American Tail, Land Before Time, Dinosaur Story.
Not to mention DreamWorks.
Well, I mean, certainly. I'm just saying, I think American Tail is the one you just kind of almost assume is directed by Spielberg because it's so good.
Right. Well, I think Land Before Time is even better, and that was also produced by Spielberg.
Well, sure. I'm just saying with the roots and everything, the whole the Russian thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
He was also involved with Balto, and not to mention all the Warner Brothers stuff.
Guys, we really need to do an animated Spielberg month at some point.
Well, one of these days.
He said not to mention all the Warner Brothers stuff he was involved with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even Roger Rabbit.
That's a big one, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I'm up next, right, Tiki? For personal experience?
No, we're not really doing personal experience. That can just be in the commentary itself.
Oh, okay. And all right.
The statement. So, Dragon, hit us with the backstory.
Here's the backstory, folks. As my compatriots have already echoed, we had basically a French critic once brought up to Spielberg. He compared Raiders of the Lost Ark to Tintin, and like kind of blew Spielberg's mind. He kind of looked into it and kind of became a Tintin fan overnight. Essentially, oh my god, that's mind blowing. And he basically saw Tintin as, oh my god, it's like Indiana Jones for kids, amazing. So he contacted Hergé, and yeah, I've heard a few pronunciations. I've heard like I think like the H is silent or Hergé. It's kind of Belgian. It's nice. So Hergé, he was a Spielberg fan. He thought Spielberg was the only person to do Tintin right. And believe it or not, literally the week after Spielberg made Temple of Doom, after he wrapped on that, I guess the whole Tintin Indiana Jones thing was on his mind, and he went to visit Hergé, and he was gonna talk with him about the rights and about what kind of movie they could collaborate over. And unfortunately, Hergé died that very week. And his wife was very gracious and knew kind of what her husband's sensibilities were, so she gave Spielberg the rights. And unfortunately, Spielberg basically over a period of 15 years, the rights kind of Spielberg got wrapped up in other things, and he wanted to get the script just right. So he kind of the rights ran out, and it went back to the family. And essentially, Warner's they tried going after it, but when they did that, basically the family said, we only have confidence in Spielberg, so I don't think you guys are right for this. So 2002, after basically kind of after the DreamWorks era of Spielberg, it's when he's doing he's in kind of that sci-fi phase, but also DreamWorks is really busting. I believe I think they may have distributed, if not all of his early 2000s movies, if not most of them. So it's kind of serendipitous. So of course Spielberg kind of had his name attached to animation in a big way in the early 2000s, late 90s. It was pitched to him, kind of pitched it as a CG film, as computer generated film. So Spielberg, again, Spielberg's busy, so he reaches out to to another famed director, Peter Jackson, who has a lot of special effects experience, especially in.
Man, I just like designed icky creatures and things. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry for that.
So coincidentally, believe it or not, Peter Jackson was a huge, lifelong Tintin fan. So when he was told this, oh my, he geeked out about what he did is he pitched it as a motion capture film. Because of course he had worked with motion capture a lot, especially with Andy Serkis, hence the Andy Serkis of it all.
Of course.
And specifically, what Peter Jackson did to show kind of how big of a fan he was and how much he wanted this job. He did some test footage. I don't know if it was 20 minutes, but at the very least, he did like a minimal test footage that was then elaborated on for 20 minutes of him as Haddock and Snow. Basically, the test was for Snow in a background in mocap, with him dressed like head to toe, just like Captain Haddock. So he really wanted this job, and he basically sold Spielberg. Let's just do like a mocap thing. Let's not do let's not do it as like a Polar Express. The mantra on the movie is it's an animated film with human performances, not a mocap film. So it's not something like Zemeckis was doing. That was just kind of the effect before it was the story. They wanted to tribute to the comics, to the history and everything. Basically, an animated film that kind of has this basically not an uncanny valley, but an uncanny performance in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So they use Weta Digital. It's Jackson's guys from Lord of the Rings and I believe the King Kong movie. I think at the very least Lord of the Rings.
Definitely King Kong, yeah.
Yeah. That's how we get Jamie Bell too. We get him from King Kong in this.
Pretty much anything that Peter Jackson works on, Weta does.
So Spielberg, he sweet talked his writers into this movie. Yeah, well, he had some of the best writing talent on this movie, believe it or not. He had to sweet talk Steven Moffat. Now, Steven Moffat, for those who may not be aware, he's the writer of a longtime writer, and I think sometime director of shows like Doctor Who and Sherlock.
Oh yeah.
So we got him, and that was a big get, apparently. But then the writer's strike happened, so he got him for like a draft or so, and then he had to leave the project. And then he brings in Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish. Of course, really? Edgar Wright.
I had no idea Edgar Wright was involved in this.
And Edgar Wright, and again, honestly, it's kind of in large part the same Ant-Man team because Joe Cornish worked with Edgar Wright on Ant-Man, and again, so you have both two Ant-Man writers working on this.
Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish worked a lot together.
Oh, certainly, I'd imagine so. Like I think they worked on Shaun of the Dead too. I'm not sure. I know they've worked on a few things.
I think they worked on that entire trilogy.
Oh, all right. So, again, as I said, it's an animated film with human performances. It's very much co-directed because Spielberg almost didn't direct at times. They kind of went back and forth, and after those 15 years, and he kind of lucked into directing essentially. But
Jackson is officially executive producer, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Officially, he's. Yep.
Officially, Peter Jackson's credited as a producer alongside Kathleen Kennedy and Steven Spielberg.
Yes, and the thing is, Jackson.
Kathleen Kennedy was the true hero of this movie.
That's a cheap. Tiki, that's a cheap producer shot right there.
I don't care. She made Solo. Oh, what's your name? Chewbacca? We're going to have to get you a nickname because that's how basic human communication works.
You are a sad, strange little man.
He's also produced every other movie in that series since they also produced like every other Spielberg movie. Yeah.
Okay,
getting back for a long time. So
getting back to my point, Peter Jackson basically he directed all the. Again, he was kind of the pioneer of the effects on this movie, so he very much co-directed a lot of this. So if he basically Spielberg, he was definitely going into uncharted waters here. Like he did, he had some digital crane work and digital camera work to kind of do for a change. He was really excited by that. It sounded like. So in the end, they reached out to Paramount, Nickelodeon. This is a really interesting time where this is at a point where Universal was originally who they were going to go to. Again, kind of Spielberg's kind of fraternity, like the guys who gave him his big break, snuck onto the Universal lot, huge pillar in Gilbert and Spielberg's history. And they were, at this time, people were scared off by animated films like Monster House and Beowulf. So again, a big mocap film.
Yeah, I wonder why people were scared off by Monster House.
Did you know that Dan Harmon worked on Monster House?
I actually did know that, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
What's wrong with Monster House?
Look, it's a fun movie. It's just the designs in that movie are very off-putting.
I like it, but I don't love it. That's where I'm at on Monster House. But more on that some other time. I don't want to trail off of Monster House. The point is, so they went to. So again, this is very much another reason this movie stuck in my mind was it was kind of a Nickelodeon production. I remember that, like, oh my god, it's a Nickelodeon movie too.
Right. I would honestly say this might be the best Nickelodeon movie ever made.
I'm saying Rango's also really impressive too. So it's kind of Rango and this are some of the most impressive ones that they've done. But anyway, so the last thing here. So again, so there were plans for a trilogy at the very least. There were still plans for a sequel that Spielberg, even to this up to this year, he's still swearing up and down. Hey, Peter Jackson's still in talks. Don't lynch me. He's going to direct this time. Go knock on his door. Look, I'm just producing this one. Very much how Spielberg. Yeah, I think they're happy with this movie, and there's definitely a kind of a fan following. So that's kind of where we're at on that. It's kind of fingers crossed for a sequel, but we'll see.
I would actually think this movie would make a damn good Netflix series.
Well, that's kind of a pointed question because sometimes Netflix and the computer animation have. I mean, the best example would be Troll Hunters, but that's from the ground up as like an original show.
Troll Hunters, How to Train Your Dragon, though.
I'll give you that. Okay, Troll Hunters and How to Train Your Dragon. So, okay, it's not impossible. I'll give you that.
All right.
And, I mean, really, the original TV series from 1990, that, surprisingly, it's really, really, really engaging. Like, there's a lot of really great action, and just the music is great. The performances are great. If you guys haven't watched it yet, I really suggest it.
All right. Also, real quick, one last important thing. This is important, though. So the story for this movie is actually based off of 3 Tintin books spliced together. Okay, so you have Secret of the Unicorn, which is the main kind of plot of the movie. You have it's the Crab with the Golden Claws. That's when we get into basically a lot of Act 2 is Golden Claws. Basically, the whole meeting Captain Haddock story, the origin story of it all. It's a lot of that's kind of Golden Claw, and then you have Red Rack
Treasure.
Yes. Okay.
But it's more like definitely it's more of a a lot of it's more like inspired by Tintin though, because they changed quite a bit from what I know.
Sure, but they do pull a lot of stuff, really kind of directly from the panel. It's really impressive. We'll get there when we get there. So yeah, that's all she wrote, folks, with the backstory. All
right. Just to say something, one thing that disappointed me about this movie is the fact that we don't get any calculus at all, and of course we don't. He's not in the the comic in this series, but I thought that was kind of disappointing. Never even got a cameo of any sort.
I think Spielberg confirmed that they at least try to include him in the sequel.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. That would be nice.
because I think even he would have liked to include Professor Calculus.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the hell you guys are talking about.
There's another supporting character that they like a professor character who probably builds stuff.
Yeah, he plays, you have Haddock, Tintin, and Calculus and Snowy. Basically, those are the four big lead characters in the series.
Okay.
Hey, Tiki, hit him with the lethal weapon.
Go watch the source material. Okay, folks, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do a commentary, but you don't necessarily have to watch the movie to follow along. But if you want to, hey, the movie's on Netflix, so that's easily accessible. Go ahead and get your copy to timestamp 00, however you're watching it. I'll go ahead and count up to 3 and then say go. And then when I say go, we all press play. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, folks, let's do it. The Adventures of Tintin in 1, 2, 3, go!
Yeah.
All right, so one thing I will say about this movie is the opening sequence is, goddamn, it's among Spielberg's best title sequences.
Oh, yeah.
It's very Catch Me. It reminds me a lot of Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same studio that did that for him, because I know those guys that did like a Pink Panther opening once that didn't make it to the screen, but those guys are good. Yeah, I'm with you too. I really love it. It's a fantastic opening.
I mean, not only in really just the style, but also the score of it.
It's a great tone setter of kind of sets you for what you're going to get in the movie, and again, I bear in mind I'm not hugely into the source material, but it feels like it's kind of basically this movie on the surface to me feels like they're going for the Peanuts movie approach, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it feels that same way. You're right.
And I thought that was a good move. Where if they're not, I think from what I could find, and bear in mind not knowing every iota of the three books they're kind of pulling stuff from. I mean, I know certain differences. I know stuff that they pulled in certain places. I did a little bit just to see what the differences were. But while we are pulling a lot of stuff from the books, I do think just on the whole it does feel very much like that universe, and it feels very much like those panels, those strips, and I guess. Sandy will be the probably better judge, but maybe some of the animated show too.
I'm sorry, I'm really enthralled with this opening. What was that last part?
Maybe some of the animated show too.
Some of the animated show, what?
Maybe. Okay, maybe when we get into it, maybe some of the stuff they pulled will be reminiscent of the animated show, and Sandy will be the best judge of that by this kind of gathering of folks here.
I'd say so.
Of which I want to kind of ask you, how does Williams kind of take any inspiration from the music in the animated show?
No, because there is no, at least from what I know, there is no really reference to the original theme from the Canadian version, it's sad, but because that theme was
I'm not saying directly pulling from the themes or anything. I'm saying, like, do you think that the style of music is similar at all?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely works for Williams to have his own style, though.
I love the piano keys that make for John Williams. That's fantastic. I'm sorry, I'm blown away by this opening sequence.
No, I think we're all in the same boat. It's like we'd rather watch the opening sequence than talk.
makes me want to watch Catch Me If You Can again too. Honestly, that is honestly for me one of the
would be a good double feature.
No,
it's honestly one of the most rewatchable Spielberg movies for me.
I got just see an entire movie in this kind of style.
I love a short film based in this style. That could be really impressive.
Yeah, at least a short film based in this kind of style for sure.
If you guys have a sharp eye here, you can catch a couple of at least 2 references to another Tintin comic, Destination Moon.
Oh,
the rocket. You talking about the rocket?
Yeah, the rocket on the cup at the beginning, and then also in that train station there that labeled all the different destinations. One of them said Moon.
Oh, there's the cover to the Secret of the Unicorn book. The poster that was just passed there. So yeah, it worked that on there quite nicely. Oh, it's so delightful. Okay, so coming up, just to make sure we get it here. I thought it was so wonderfully clever. And again, this is kind of like the most kind of the Peanuts movie homage here. So I appreciate so much. We have like a visual cameo of Hergé here as the caricature artist, which I thought was so brilliant. I love how we build to the Tintin reveal with this signature Tintin sketch. And again, I love the fact that the original creator in some capacity is sketching him. I thought that was so clever. I'm in love with the intro to this movie. Like, not just like the Catch Me If You Can stuff. I mean, just this whole great build.
No, you're right. It's a beautiful transition from the 2D to the 3D. It's wonderful.
And honestly, the big
Go ahead.
A lot of this movie has a lot of clever transitions.
yes, and honestly, with this whole sequence too, with the with our pickpocket here, this whole sequence, including just all of this building to the Tintin reveal as well. I love that. I just love this visual storytelling that we have all throughout this movie. I like the visual storytelling and kind of the kinetic action, but it's more so just that we're seeing things unfold without being really dialogue driven, and in a way that again that captures what they're going for with this movie. That it's story before the effects. Now, again, there are a few places where the effect trumps story, which I'm not crazy about, but I still love on the whole though. It's storytelling before effect, and that's the perfect balance.
There's one specific set piece in Act 3 I think we can all agree is like a Spielberg signature.
Now, speaking of Spielberg signature, call me daft, but the Silk here kind of looks like Spielberg. Am I wrong?
I didn't really see that, but
No.
Oh, well, when we get a better look at them, but I don't think so.
Ooh, does it think like?
I'm not saying feature for feature, but I'm just saying in the overall and kind of just the face.
The pickpocket, Jacob. Silk the pickpocket. That he looks like Spielberg.
I didn't really get that from him at all. I mean, like, if anything, I thought more that Saccharin or that Salad guy looked more like Spielberg.
I gotta tell you, I think I just love Spielberg working the camera in this. Again, I don't know if he's working through the whole piece because I just know he's like mapping out certain shots with the kind of the digital camera function. But I do love this. I love how we're doing these great Spielbergian shots. Like we see all the reflective mirrors that tease like kind of the iconic Tintin hair and like all that's great. And we reveal like what's behind him through the mirrors. So again, that feels like it's a Spielberg 101 shot, and I love that.
You know what it is? It's the glasses.
Raiders of the Lost Ark with the hat. Shadow.
Yeah,
and these shots like that aren't exactly easy to pull off an animation either.
So again, not just really basing it off this, just this experience I had. This is probably the most Tintin experience I'm going to have would be with this movie and just like some rudimentary stuff I've looked up. But I think Jamie Bell, he feels really spot on as Tintin. He really does to me. I just feel this is the most interested I've been in. This is a Tintin I could follow for more adventures. I mean, just Jamie Bell, he's really compelling in the role to me. He's like, this is just kind of a young, adventurous guy. He's a reporter. He's kind of a detective on the side. He's kind of a man of all trades. Like, this guy's interesting. I like this guy.
He wasn't actually the original pick, though.
Who was the original pick?
Well, like Thomas Sangster was, but due to the long production schedule, he was forced to drop out.
Of course, Jamie Bell infamously played another character in blazoned in CG in a little film called Four Stick.
Oh God!
Did Ben Grimm the Thing? I mean, it could have been good, but again, that's if he actually had more lines.
It's crazy to think that guy played freaking.
And he wasn't bad in the role. Let's be fair. He didn't do anything in the movie, though. It's the problem. It's like, hey, you know that character, the Thing? Remember what he does in this movie? Nothing. Here's a character who does not do nothing. We have Daniel Craig as a Saccharin.
Am I the only one who thinks this guy's villain plot is a little bit too convoluted?
Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think it's convoluted, but I will say that he does. I think we have a reveal that really isn't that dramatic a reveal with him. I think we oversell that. That, to me, I guess is the most convoluted element of it, but everything else, I don't think it's really that. I can follow the plot, T. That's the thing we're going to get into as it goes on. I don't really see where you're not following the plot.
I can follow the plot for sure. Look, Dragon, I just think this movie is kind of like, it's Raiders on autopilot for me in terms of the plot. It's like it's Raiders without any of the substance for me with the plot. That's the only issue I have with it.
Well, real quick, I just want to mention with this kind of the whole marketplace setting that just kind of passed by. I just love kind of the little staples there. Again, like the fact that we establish all we need to know. Where, Tintin is just kind of he's the kid who's known around the marketplace, kind of known around the town. He's just kind of this nice vendor who like, oh, I sold this. I gave the kid a break. I sold it to him. I haggled with him, and then of course that people are naming their price for it. Like, oh my god, I threw away like the bargain of a lifetime. Darn it. Yeah. I really like.
And I'm sure, right, these newspapers are references to previous stories as well.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That are just to show us that, what this guy does.
Yeah. A lot of rich history in Tintin's little apartment here. I will say, coming up is like this scene right here. This is one of those examples of kind of effect trumping the story here, where I feel this whole thing with the cat. This is a showing off, like, hey, we're touring the room, and we have this wild chase with.
There's always a danger with the motion capture movies. Is you gotta showcase the technology. Yeah.
And again, I'd say in a few places we do that when we don't need to. Again, like the scene goes on like a little longer than it has to.
But one thing with this film that Spielberg really loved about the motion capture, of course, is he could frame the camera anywhere he wanted, literally. Like he said, like he could frame it in a bubble or whatever. I think it's really, really impressive.
I mean, Spielberg would have to pull some Orson Welles cinematography to get under that desk like that if it was in live action. Dig a big hole behind the set, get a camera guy down there. Now, from what I understand, so one of the trade-offs in kind of melding the three books as they did was that we don't have Haddock established as a friend of Tintin's at the start, so we would have to research the book instead of being told the story as he is later in the movie, because otherwise, logically, Haddock tell me, hey, what's the story behind this scroll? Haddock, you have any ideas? Oh, yes, let me tell you. It'd be something like that.
Right, yeah.
Again, you have to have some compromise there, which I don't think hurts the movie. But I'll admit, like the library scene, I love the old school research. I love the noir.
I have a feeling that you like this movie more than I do because of all the old school detective stuff in it. Just in general, like that really speaks to your sensibilities.
Act 1 has a great noir tone to it, and I like how each act feels like Act 1 feels kind of very noir.
Act 1 is by far my favorite of the three acts. I'll say that much.
Act 3, basically back half of Act 2 and especially Act 3, I lump in that one sequence I think we're all thinking of with Act 3, which let's say that's kind of getting to our Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of adventure kind of vibe there. And I don't know, the middle is kind of a combination of that. It's kind of getting us to kind of classic Tintin versus like a little bit of the Spielberg sensibilities, kind of action adventure. So it's kind of globe-trotting then action adventure, I guess, we're kind of mixing it there. So like right here, this whole this sequence here, honestly, when Barnaby, the later we reveal the FBI, the FBI guy who's trying to help Tintin by telling him, hey, you don't want to buy this thing, kid. Trust me, it's worth a lot of trouble. It feels very noir. It feels very Maltese Falcon. The moment when he died,
that whole bit with Barnaby was in the trailer, and it was a big selling point.
Yeah, I love that we don't. I'm jumping ahead. I realize now I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but let's just say I like that we don't waste death in here. We have the Brad Bird always loves talking about this, and I love it when he talks about it too. When he talks about kind of we should have stakes in animation, where we should establish that there is a risk, people can die, and we don't go overboard with it, but we don't undersell it. That we have like violence and people with guns and everything, and like we have one major death, and then we have some implied death. But the point is, death is not a foreign notion. Like there's risk in this.
I'd kind of like to see Brad Bird and Steven Spielberg work on a movie together.
Oh, that would be a dream team.
Well, technically they have before, but work on one again.
Yeah.
Which one did they do together? Remind me.
I mean, I think it's more like he produced, and Brad Bird wrote. Batteries Not Included.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I gotta go back to it because I watched some of that. It was interesting, but it's been a long time. So I just remember like a little cute scene with the ship flying. So I gotta. So again, this is something I'm talking about. So I've seen some panels from the scene, like you basically lifted from the Tintin comics from the story. and like this chase with the dog on the grounds, like this is all stuff pulled directly from the panels. Like it's very impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, here, Snowy was a really hard effect to pull off with like the fur and the fact this is a very competent dog and a dog that's going to be kind of a main centerpiece and kind of a like it's not an actor you can trace. You have you have like just an animal you have to sell like an animal, but it can't be too cartoony or it can't be too just like it's a dog. Why would we just film a dog?
Right.
You got balance. Like you don't want to go into the Scooby Doo CG realm if too much of it, I guess.
Thank God they didn't.
It's like, when is a dog a dog? Kind of one of those profound questions.
Tintin, directed by Raja Gosnell.
Oh god. So we're in Marlin Spike Hall here. I do like how we explore this location, especially later on. We kind of see some extra secrets to this place.
I think it's going to interesting reveal what happens later on.
So again, this is from essentially this bit's from the book here, where the butler here, who is kind of a friendly guy, as we learn in the movie, he has to knock out Tintin after mistaking him for a robber, and from what I understand, Sakharine here was a more ancillary character in the book these are based upon. Sakharine was essentially he was what he pretended to be in this movie, where he was just an art collector. Like he had the ship, and then basically the ship was stolen from him for the scroll. So all of that, and that was basically the end of what you had with him. He was like a plot point of like, oh no, the ship's been stolen.
What I understand, he was either a red herring or just a completely coincidental character.
Yeah. And I tell you, what I love what Daniel Craig's doing here. One, I love that he reminds me of he sounds and acts like he's barely recognizable as Daniel Craig, which I love, by the way.
That's true. That's very true.
To me, here's what it's a blend of. He sounds like Craig Ferguson doing one of his erudite characters, like from Tarzan or from Freakazoid or
from Winnie the Pooh 2011.
Or what about a gobber?
Well, again, I'm thinking more of like he's done like this sort of voice before. It's like Daniel Craig almost sounds identical to like when Craig Ferguson puts on like a scary erudite voice of like he's a dignified guy, he's like a high society type.
Yeah.
And he looks like John Hurt. I just love he looks so much like John Hurt to me from Hellboy. Just in general, like just John Hurt, like with darker hair, essentially.
And what's kind of funny is that how Spielberg always wanted to direct a James Bond movie. Now he's directing a James Bond actor.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if he did with Sean Connery.
Directed 2 James Bonds. 2 Bonds down, few to go. Yep. George Lazenby, where are you?
That's what I'm saying. Let's get the George Lazenby Spielberg movie.
There's a great documentary on Lazenby, but let's not get too into
Timothy Dalton.
Oh yeah, he's great. Oh, I love Timothy. Again, I like the butler is just kind of he's serving the house before he's serving Sakharine here because he hates Sakharine's guts because he knows he's the bad guy and descended from the bad guy.
It just makes you wonder what all does the butler know.
Yeah.
Like,
well, he's in his corner, so that's important.
Yes.
Oh, this is a very minor detail, but I love the design of the carpet going up the stairs.
Yeah, I just noticed that too. It is a nice carpet.
Like it's just very, very aesthetically pleasing. I don't really know how to describe it.
Okay, so here's the noir thing I was talking about before. Like all this is great film noir stuff. Like right here, of course, it's like Tintin with a flashlight, man. And yes, that's it's old school detective. And the photorealistic sets that we have here are amazing. Again, you can feel the weight of that table and just like the lighting, the setting. I'm blown away by how the sets look.
Again, these kind of shots would be much harder to pull off in like traditional CG animation.
Yeah.
Well, funny thing. I think I recall that a lot of these set pieces, like the hallway, the stairs, and the apartment, are look very much alike to the original comics and the TV series, which I think it's great that Spielberg carried that over so precisely.
Haddock is a really, really pivotal part of the Tintin mythos, of course. And I know, obviously, we need to have Haddock in this movie.
It's interesting.
I feel like it would be better to do what Dragon suggested and be like Haddock just being someone that Tintin knows. And I don't know. I just feel like Haddock gets introduced into this movie in a convoluted way. And it's not that I dislike Andy Serkis. I just kind of feel like, and again, I'm kind of jumping the gun, but I want to kind of get this conversation started before we introduce him.
Well, from what I understand, later on is I think they're adapting the book where he met Haddock, so we still have that first meeting. But I understand what you're saying, Tiki. That it would be easy. It would be helpful to our plot to just have him as a.
Because for that reason, this movie feels a lot more like a miniseries than it does a proper movie for me, and it feels very disjointed. And like I said, I feel like. By the way, this is something Spielberg never would have done in his E.T. special edition days.
Yeah. Okay, so again, real quick, we'll get back to the Haddock point in a moment here. Just want to say, again, right here is what I'm talking about. This is pure, Maltese Falcon, where the man walks in with, a knife in his back, and he just kind of falls over, where right now, we have this great tension in the room. Who sent you? And, of course, guy gets blown away, and we think for a moment, he might be the one who shot through the door, and then, of course, falls right over. And this is a classic spy thing, where when I'm a spy or a detective thing, it's kind of in both, especially with spy works, where a guy dies and he scrolls out something in blood before he dies. In this case, he kind of scrolls out a code on the paper. And again, we're using blood very strategically and not gratuitously. So again, we're covering all sorts of bases really well here. Again, it's about to happen. So it's
still kind of interesting that he's able to spell such a long word while unconscious in blood.
Well, this isn't really something that matters at all, but that car that just drove away looks like the car Eddie Valiant drove in Roger Rabbit.
I guess it's kind of time appropriate, though.
Yeah.
I mean, when do these things actually take place? Like the 30s or 40s?
30s, I think. Yeah. The first comic was done in 29.
How old is Tintin actually? I mean, as a character, not the strip.
Well, I don't think they've ever I don't think they've ever confirmed that, but I read it as he's maybe 19 or 20, he's in his early 20s, he's old enough to drink and brandish a gun.
Yeah, because he's a pretty well established character as we found out before. I mean, he's solved a number of different mysteries, so he's got to be in his mid 20s.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can we just take a moment to acknowledge that Thompson and Thompson are the best part of the movie?
Oh, they're fantastic.
So here's the thing. Thompson and Thompson, they're a load of fun, of course, played by the wonderful pair of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost?
Yeah, Nick Frost.
And again, they also work out with Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish too.
Exactly. So again, I love this it's all relative with the kind of the casting and the writing process on this. But anyways, so these guys are perfect segue back to the Captain Haddock thing. So these guys are pre-established, and that was a smart move. And I feel, Tiki, for me, I disagree. I'll respectfully disagree with some of your points here. Where it doesn't feel like a mini series to me. I mean, I just feel I feel some good pacing with this, where you just kind of go from the one thing to the next thing, and I don't really mind that because it just feels like that element from Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's it's one big. It just there's hardly any breathing room between action scenes. I'm not saying there isn't breathing room. I'm just saying you feel like you're just going from one set piece to the next. It's kind of exciting. And I kind of felt some of that magic.
Okay, you know what? Maybe in that way, I feel like just the movie looking so good almost kind of is a detriment in that regard, because there's moments where I want to kind of just take in the visuals and I can't because the movie's just paced so relentlessly.
Maybe that's it. Honestly, I think that I can understand that. I guess. Yeah,
okay.
I love the elastic wallet gag. By the way, this is great.
Yes,
again, this is a fun chase, and this is so well staged. And again, from the comic too, all this elastic on the the wallets on the elastic, and it's staged almost panel for panel.
I think you hit the money right on the head with the Peanuts movie comparison. I think this is absolutely the Tintin equivalent to the Peanuts movie.
I'd actually like to see Spielberg do something on Peanuts.
Oh my god, yeah, oh my god, I would love to see Spielberg somehow do a live action adaptation of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
No, please.
Maybe not live action, but if he does another animated
live action, but Spielberg does really good casting with kids, so get it to be all kids.
Yeah, but not Charlie Brown is bald, Tiki. Come on.
But like maybe he doesn't know that.
Sandy, you saw my new haircut. Just have him have like a buzz cut. It doesn't.
It's too big a risk. Okay, people are not going to like that, even if it's Spielberg, right?
If he did it, it should definitely be animated.
Real quick, getting back to the just speaking of adaptation, I would like to see Spielberg do some direct adaptations though, because again, I think adapt. When I say directed, I mean like
Ready Player One was an adaptation.
That's what I'm saying. I want to see him do more adaptations because I thought he did a good job Ready Player One and something like this, where it's maybe not a very literal adaptation, but it's adapting many like works and kind of a series. It's adapting slightly more verbatim than like when he's done a movie that's based on a book, is what I'm saying. Sometimes he's done things loosely inspired by works. I'm saying something's a little bit more directly from a source material, because I think he hasn't done those as often.
What about that weird World War II comic movie he's doing, apparently?
Yeah, he's doing Blackhawks. It's a DC comic.
The character designs in the movie here, you have Alan, and then there's another fellow. There's another fellow who we see with Alan later on in a blue turtleneck and a newsboy cap. A lot of the character designs, right down to the clothes and the hats, are pulled straight from the comics, which is it's terrific. It's spot on.
Sure.
And again, right now, the snowy chase going on here. Again, this is a time we're kind of feeling our oats with the with the medium here, and it's again, it doesn't kill the movie, but it's noticeable. I feel it's like we're just kind of spend a lot of time here. It's I think more so than some of the other stuff, it's like a little more exciting here. Do we really
I think we kind of nailed my problem with the movie here. I think it's definitely like, it's not saying like it's like, oh, it's a terrible movie and anyone who doesn't like it should be shamed. Last Jedi fans, Last Jedi haters. But what I'm saying is that basically I just feel like the movie spends a little too, like I said, Dragon, I really do think this is like a War of the Worlds type situation for me, where for me, War of the Worlds, given the fact that it was a think piece as well as a blockbuster, I think the think piece quality kind of made me accept more the fact that that movie is essentially just a series of set pieces. Whereas this, like I said, this is basically, I hate to say it, but it's kind of Indiana Jones light. And for me, like not having something to sink my teeth into with a plot is a little bit more of a problem for me. Like, it's a little too fluffy, you know what I mean?
Look, I don't know. I kind of like the Indiana Jones light of all, in that again, it's less light, maybe not the operative word, but it is Indiana Jones for kids, and I kind of like that.
Well, it's better than the other thing I would have described it as, which is Diet Coke Indiana Jones.
All right, so real quick, to circle back to Saccharin here. I really like so Daniel Craig. I already mentioned like visually and kind of sound wise what he's kind of doing with the character, but I do like the I just like kind of this sophisticated character who again initially just seems like a nice guy, but again there's like a menace. There's like a menace you couldn't quite nail down. Now we're seeing that menace come to the forefront. But again, he kind of has that. He's a guy with the cane sword, and he has a good look to him. He just kind of has that dignified yet malicious quality to him, which is really fun.
He's definitely that kind of classic villain, but that it just works in this scenario.
Like a Snidely Whiplash, almost like a sophisticated upper class Snidely Whiplash.
I want to say almost like a James Bond type villain.
I'd agree with that a little bit more.
Like he's like a 1930s James Bond villain. Yeah. Like if James Bond went back that far, this is what a James Bond villain would be.
Kind of a cross between a Bond villain and an Indiana Jones villain, I guess.
Yeah,
it's kind of in that, it's like right in the middle.
It belongs in my treasure vault.
It belongs in a museum.
Real quick, I just want to mention with Thompson too before we meet the captain here. Here's the thing. So we had some characters pre-established, and I feel there's a certain line. If you're doing an origin movie, which again they settled on doing an origin movie, there's only so much you can. There's only so much you can have pre-established, and I think sometimes like the perfect. Okay, yes, we have this. We have an established relationship. We get a sense of it. Kind of improves. It kind of sets up Tintin's character. Okay, he's a working relationship with these guys. He's done a lot of stuff, and if you're going to introduce like a staple of Tintin, like you could do it while he's on an adventure, and I think just doing that with Haddock still made sense. And yes, there was a trade-off, but I don't think it was a trade-off that really hurt him.
You see, I think the thing with Haddock is I feel like the bigger a fan of the source material you are, the more the character is going to land with you.
Yeah.
Simply because there's a lot of backstory to get into with this guy. This guy is a complex character.
I have to disagree.
I mean, I kind of have to disagree too.
Do you know why I disagree with you, Tiki? Because as I said earlier, I was and still am unfamiliar with the source material, and he landed with me quite well.
Yeah, I mean,
that's fair.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the source material. I mean, Tintin and Haddock, they've always just been an unbreakable team to me. And no matter how many times I watch this movie or watch the original episode, it never really fails to click that his backstory. I mean, I don't feel it's that convoluted.
Well, you know what? I really, just real quick, I just want to mention, I love how clever Tintin is with this escape here, where, you know, has like the kind of, has this, all these bottles kind of rigged up here. I gotta tell you that when I was watching this, because it's been a while, I completely forgot, I thought he was going to unleash a lion on these guys. So I could have sworn he was going to go for that. But no, the cork thing is kind of fun and clever, and of course, like the makeshift grappling hook that he makes with the with the plank of wood is great. And again, I think it's a really good introduction to Haddock. And look, just not knowing Haddock, again, this is pretty much my main introduction to Haddock. I kind of knew the very thin basics when I watched it that first time when I got it from the Red Box, and really just kind of honestly, I really went into this with fresh eyes on a rewatch here, and just kind of getting to know the guy as is. I mean, he was just kind of a fun drunk. He's kind of like he's like a drunk character for the ages. It doesn't just feel like a derivative or a cheap joke. You just feel he's a rich character of the drunk. He is the drunken sailor, essentially. It's like, yeah, that's how you do that character. Andy Serkis, he's having such fun. I mean, Andy Serkis is just, of course, such an underrated actor who hopefully now after Black Panther is going to get some due these days. You know, because he's really talented.
I made it rain. I made it rain.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, he's kind of this.
Haddock is charming. He's a charming drunk.
Exactly. And that's he's just so simple and it works.
Wishes he was Haddock.
What?
I said Jack Sparrow wishes he was Haddock.
Yeah. Yeah, saying he just hit it right on the head. He's a delightful. He was kind of a delightful drunk. Like he's kind of the kind of the high example of like, yes, this is like kind of the high point of a drunk character for the ages. You know, if you're gonna do that, this is the way you do that. Where it's like part of his, basically the only level I think we get with Haddock that I would imagine that maybe we don't get a lot in the books or not. But I thought was a really interesting layer to it that we got here is. Haddock drinks because he's mourning his father. And I thought that's all you really need. And that adds like a level of dimension to him and the whole family, the ancestry with the pirates. Like, okay, that's why
also Spielberg daddy issues.
Well, it's more like daddy's dead, but okay.
But it's still an issue involving a daddy.
All right, fine.
Really?
But like that's enough with what we get with the character, It's like this. We understand why he's drawn to the sea, and we understand why he drinks, and we don't spend a lot of time with it because we don't need to. Yeah,
I like how a character like Alan, how you have these characters that have really kind of unnatural facial features, I guess. With like Alan here has this just almost like Mr. Incredible nose, where it's just like this straight, like there's no bridge.
Yeah, like Mr. Incredible has like that Roman nose built into the design, that kind of curvature. And it's kind of funny. I love how we, again, like with the whole Hergé thing, we homaged the kind of more the exaggerated comic features with the when we first saw Haddock, we saw him through a bottle, which of course says a lot about a character. That feels like a Spielberg choice to me. If we're going to introduce this character, let's introduce him that he's a guy who literally lives in a bottle, where we see him like his face is distorted in the glass bottles. It's like we see him all kind of exaggerated, like definitely looking more like the book, I guess. Kind of fun. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting story that he has. I love the idea of a story that gets passed down. That to me is like a good idea. I'm sure Spielberg must have loved the whole like you pass down a story from family member to family member. Hence him being the last of the Haddocks, and that's kind of an important thing. He doesn't have anyone to pass the story down to. And again, just that he's drinking out of grief, and in doing so, he's forgotten the story. He's forgotten like the big thing that was passed down to him. So he's just in a perpetual state of just he's a sad guy who's drinking to be happy.
It's like drinking made me forget. I was sad he died, so I drank. And that's because I drank, so I'm gonna drink some more. I can't do his voice.
These ship hands are great.
Feel very accurate too, like just the tank tops and the do-rags. It's
Yeah.
And sometimes I like how you can actually like see like the ship moving back and forth.
Yeah, and of course the sequence coming up, it feels like it's pulled from like a 40s, like an early Disney film where we have like I keep thinking of the deleted soup sequence from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The whole like you're on a boat and you keep like rocking back and forth, and like when they're eating the soup, it just kind of jumps into the other guy's bowl or something like that. And we kind of have that in the sequence here where basically Tintin, he's getting this oh so important key, and in doing so, it's like everyone's it's like classic kind of it's just fun animation where you have like all these guys shifting back and forth like into the other beds and not being awoken by
we all know that Spielberg is like a big fan of those kind of stuff. So it's probably just like he just loved probably doing that kind of thing.
I have a number of really weird pirates here.
I love how Haddock is just he's played as he's so serious about just booze. Like he plays it up like there's this big important obstacle behind this door, but it's nothing but alcohol.
You have the crewman here, like the guy missing the eyelids, and there's like a really the animal husbandry is really creepy.
Like how does one survive without their eyelids? We may never know. Apparently, this guy found a way.
Yes, life finds a way, Jacob.
Yes.
Of course, big shark hanging from the rafters. I wonder who directed this movie. We do have a few Spielberg references throughout this movie, though. Of course, Raiders being later on we're gonna have a Raiders and a Last Crusade reference, so we definitely have some Spielberg homages, and kind of a little bit of Catch Me If You Can at the very top.
Oh yeah.
It's just like this entire scene is just like old cartoon slapstick.
Yeah, which again, very well directed cartoon slapstick.
Spielberg is like obviously a huge old cartoon fan, so it's probably just like natural for him to step into this.
Yeah. And of course, by the way, during that sequence, I had like a gag that reminded me of an identical gag from The Mask with Jim Carrey. We had the dog going for the sandwich before he's going for the keys. It's like almost the same setup. Like, no, not the cheese, get the keys. In this case, like not the sandwich.
I love how Tintin just isn't angry. He looks at the captain in utter confusion, like what?
Okay, now this is one of my favorite bits of animation in the whole movie here. Like this is just it's so fantastic here. It's like animation 101 right here, where it's like Haddock, Tintin goes to knock out the guy, and of course Haddock grabs the booze and just hurts his hand. Like this is a perfect little snippet of animation that sums up their characters. Tintin's the guy who gets things done, and Haddock's the guy who drinks things while he gets things done.
God.
And sometimes it gets in the way. And that's honestly, from what I understand, that's kind of what they nailed down with the personalities of, Tintin's an overachiever, where Haddock is an underachiever, and that's their dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I love in the animation you can see kind of the actor again because it's just so well done. It's less of an uncanny valley, like kind of trippy effect. It's more of you can see the performance in the actors. Like you're reminded of like, oh yeah, I could see Andy Serkis in that. But yeah, it looks like Jamie Bell. Yeah.
Right. It's not so much like, hey, we're just going to make these characters look exactly like they do in real life, and it's going to be super off-putting.
It just captures. Basically, they made an animated movie that was kind of made through a different measure, but it is, in all intents and purposes, an animated movie. In the way that when we see a Pixar film or we see like even a DreamWorks film, you will see, you'll think the actor at times, but in reality, what they've done is they've recorded the actor recording their lines. They've studied that animation. That's why that character sometimes looks like the actor. In this case, they did that very literally, and it's kind of confused. You're like, it's a character before it's the actor, but I can see the actor from time to time.
I mean, you can definitely see these kind of characters as actors stepping into a live action part almost.
Yeah, and that dog is always hungry.
And someone needs to feed that dog.
Yeah.
That dog. Don't call it that dog. I know that dog.
I know Joey, or as his name is in French, I think it's or Milo.
Milu.
Milu. Yeah. It's fun. I think I'm not sure. I think we had like a French actor on this movie who, from what I heard, like in the behind the scenes thing, there was an actor on this who kept thinking of Snowy. It was the first time he ever heard Snowy referred to as something other than Milo.
Oh, really? That must be for him.
That's the thing. So they had to like say, "What Snowy?" It's like, is there snow in this scene? They had to do a double take. Oh, the dog Snow. That's weird. It never referred to this dog as Snowy.
Because they changed his name for them.
The thing is, like 80 translations of Tintin. How amazing is that?
It's like one of the most translated works of literature, I think, almost.
I know, that's awesome.
Or at least in comics.
Sure. Of course, here he's we saved Snowy, but he's lost the booze.
At least he has his priorities straight.
Slightly more important, but just slightly.
At least he has his priorities straight there.
And again, really,
it'd be like if like one was hanging off the rope and the other was just like, do I save the dog or do I save the booze?
Again, nice kinetic sequence here. Again, it feels very kind of Raiders running away-esque, and I love that. Again, we've kind of found a way to get away with all the action we want and yet not kill anybody. That's kind of impressive.
The guy screaming to Haddock and Tintin, "Help me!"
No one really dies until the flashback. Really, like, literally, nobody really dying. Man.
Other than the flashback, not only anybody actually dies in this movie.
Yeah, Barnaby and the flashback guys. That's about it. The flashback pirates. That's really.
Another rarity for Spielberg.
Here we kind of pull a Silence of the Lambs cut here, and Silence of the Lambs cut. That's kind of your, we got the big house reveal in Silence, where we build to, okay, you think a character's there, and then we just we keep cutting back and forth until you reveal. No, it was as a fake out the whole time. They're not in that boat. It looks exactly like they're in that boat.
Yeah.
Good old Silence cut. You murdered my whiskey. I love that whiskey. By the way, it already passed, but I love the old telegraph, by the way. I was kind of sending the message about Bahar.
Yeah, that was. I like how I captured the essence of this time period.
Certainly. By the way, I love Saccharin spelling out, "No, not like I asked. No, I directly told you not to kill Haddock." How many times do I have to spell that out to you?
And there's the 3D grab right there with the whole cane in the face.
Yeah. Also, it goes a little underrated here, but I like the wind effect. It's the wind effect in scenes that we have where you kind of see it blowing. Kind of cool.
Spielberg spotlights.
With the animation when it comes to the hair and the textures and the clothes and everything, it's just like they really went above and beyond with the detail and all that.
I'm really impressed. I'm also really impressed with the water animation.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah.
However, if I'm right, I guess I'm thinking of the flashback here, but we'll see when we get to the flashback scene. But I don't think we ever go under the water. I think that might be it's just too hard to animate. I think that might be the. I don't think we see a character underwater. Let me be specific. I think we see a character going into the water. We don't see him from under the water because I think they didn't want to animate that. But we'll see, I guess, when we do the flashback.
Yeah, I mean, water's incredibly hard to animate, especially to make it look convincing.
Yeah. I think they may have needed a tank. Well, no, they probably wouldn't have needed a tank, but like an underwater, like a dunk tank, so they could kind of film that. But I don't know. They probably just would have mimicked that. Like Doug Jones mimics that all the time when they did Hellboy. So I guess they would just wires or. Like you can see Andy Serkis and smile here.
Reactions from Tintin. I love how Snowy's just kind of chilling in the boat, like, okay, what's going on? I'm bored.
I love this. They accidentally get knocked out, and just like Haddock writes it off as, oh, landlubbers. Whenever Haddock smiles, you see Andy Serkis now. Yeah, that's Serkis. Look at that smile. That's the whole, I made it rain.
Oh, yeah, I actually think I have a copy of my mixtape I could give you.
Oh, my God. I miss him so much.
Yeah, they shouldn't have killed him off so early in that movie.
But I mean, they did it at the right time.
Claw, just so we can get just so Claw can be like the start of the Clone Saga.
What?
Yes, Claw is going to be. They clone Claw a bunch of times, and he's the start of the Clone Saga. That's how we get the Clone Saga in the MCU. Is just a bunch of Claw clones.
Okay, just to make this relevant, speaking of the MCU, hey, Toby Jones, who was Armin Zola in Winter Soldier and the Captain America franchise, he plays Silk here. This is him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Toby Jones is just one of those actors that just randomly pops up in everything.
Just another Spielberg project. I just saw him in Jurassic World too.
Really?
Yeah, there's a slight spoiler alert, but he was one of the one who actioned off the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So also there was an ET. I believe there's an ET bike in the background. I could just be reading into it because it's a bike with a basket, but I'm saying with like kind of.
There's a bike and basket. I love the little birds.
Yes, it was such a great bit.
Movie.
Yeah, I can bring cartoony imagery to life naturally. It's great.
Nice visual gag.
It'd be a bite if it did in live action, but in animation you can get away with it. That old lady's letting that guy have it.
I love this bit. This is a classic comedy bit right here. It's like where they're I believe he stole your wallet. When they're completely oblivious to the fact, even with all these laws, that he can I wonder if this guy could be the pickpocket.
So I gotta tell you, this is one of the most charming ideas of the movie to me. I just love the idea of this kleptomaniac pickpocket who's remorseful. He's not a bad guy. He just loves wallets. He doesn't steal from the wallets, just collects them. I just love that idea.
He organizes them alphabetically.
I know. It's like by the person he stole it from. I just think it's wonderful. It's great. Again, he's a nice guy. He's just like, I'm not a bad person. I'm a kleptomaniac. He's afraid of open space. He's like, oh, this scene's just great.
Wrong prefix and suffix there.
These guys make Inspector Clouseau look like Batman. These guys. They're wonderfully stupid. They're wonderfully dim.
They make Inspector Gadget look like Batman.
No, they make Inspector Gadget look like Iron Man.
Well,
we need an uber serious, dark and gritty Inspector Gadget reboot.
I pitched that once and it did not go well.
Who would play dark and gritty Inspector Gadget?
Well, I didn't think of it. I didn't think about casting on that one, but
I'm thinking maybe Jake Gyllenhaal.
I like that cast, but I think there's probably someone better we're not thinking of right now. But anyway, let's get back on Thompson and Thompson.
All right.
I hope they let this guy. I'm sure these guys didn't really throw the book at him. I just hope they let him off because again, he was remorseful. He was nice about it. Just hopefully he returned all the property or something.
That's a great transition, by the way, with the Tintin name.
We have really great transitions in this movie. There's just one that's kind of weird. It's kind of, I think it gets us from Act 2 to Act 3, debatably, but we'll get there when we get there. It's a really weird transition.
Let's see if there's any fresh water.
Personally, one of my favorite transitions is when they're in the desert and the ship comes over the sand and transitions to the ocean.
That's great. I can't wait to get to that. It's a great one. We'll get there. Okay, now this idea is something that it'd be a hard sell in live action, but it's so delightful here. this drunkard, he lights the boat on fire. Again, I love that it's an action not out of malice. From what I understand, sometimes the captain could be belligerent in the comics. Like he knocked Tintin out so he could fly the plane instead of like what he does later in the movie. Basically, he would botch things up sometimes, and like a really like, oh man, why is he even traveling with this guy? In this case, it makes a lot more sense. He's trying to do something nice here, but he realizes, oh my god, what am I thinking?
Like, yeah, that's a good idea. Use our propulsion system to start a fire in the boat.
Yeah, he's very remorseful here. Like, oh, I'm such a miserable wretch.
That's what I love about it. It's like he's instantly remorseful about it. It's not like he's just like a drunken idiot. Like, well, I thought it was a good idea.
And again, Tiki with that little detail that we got, again, he's drinking to grieve his father. It adds a lot of sympathy, a lot of
daddy issues.
Apologies to Arnold Spielberg.
Right.
Apologies to Arnold Spielberg if he's listening to this.
God.
Okay, I love this. This set piece is great. This whole sequence here, and the fact that this plane is coming out. We set up this plane on the boat. We had like the track and everything, and now it's kind of, oh, we're saved. And of course, nowhere are they saved. They're in plain sight, and literal plain sight. This thing comes out, it's shooting at them, and I love that Tintin.
Jack, start the engine.
it's a water plane too. Yeah, it's the what do they call that? The seaplane? Yes, it's a seaplane, just like that. Yeah.
Freshwater politicians.
Again, I love this. I love how he uses this one bolt in a strategic manner, which downs the boat, and then of course it leads to a Jaws homage, which is fantastic. We have a great Jaws reference coming up. This one time, I think this is the most you see of the characters in water. You see them from above.
Mm-hmm.
It's also they really don't keep their clothes wet for very long. Also, a pretty hard thing to animate.
Yeah, exactly, man. Again, that's like Ratatouille. I remember Pixar really had to deal with that with Ratatouille, and Incredibles was more so like they had like the super suits like more of like a runoff material. It wasn't like they get soaked into like layers and layers of clothing.
Like Brad Bird's like motto is like, do that only better.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Here's like that dun. I'm just saying with the little tuft of hair out, it's like it's him referencing how he made Jaws. It's got to be.
I love these French guys here.
Yeah.
I interviewed a pilot once. I think that's his justification for flying a plane.
See, I like that we are reveling in the absurd here with things like this, where Tintin, it'd be such a buy that this character would be that good at that many things, but it kind of adds like, okay, he's a character, he's a been there, done that character, he's done a lot of stuff. We built him without.
At least they also justify by like having a manual there too.
Exactly. We have the manual. We've also established with his office. We've seen this is a guy who's been on many adventures, and of course, even if you're not a fan of Tintin, you understand there's like a built-in fan base for him. Like he's been around for many years. Therefore, it's a character who's been around. Again, kind of like a Peanuts movie comparison. There, it's a character who's he's been through the ringer, whether you know all the adventures or not. You get it.
It makes me wonder because are those the two only French guys in the entire ship? And why?
But it's always kind of weird. Like when characters are supposed to be French, they're always played by British people.
Well, I know it's like I guess Haddock. Well, remember these are Haddock's men, so Haddock probably just went from port to port, and he just kind of picked these guys up. I guess.
I know, but it's like it's still something weird. It's like something that was always weird. Like when they're supposed to be French, but they're speaking English, they're always played by British people.
Really?
It's just like a joke trope or something like that.
I'm gonna go for a deep cut Spielberg reference here. We had a British actor who had to put on a French accent for the third Indiana Jones film with I always forget this guy's name, but it's not because the character's bad. It's the Walter Donovan. That's the guy. It's Walter Donovan.
Yeah.
I get from the third one. He was it was either French to English or English to French. It's always like a reversal. Okay, so this here now, believe it or not, this is an actual phenomenon that exists in real life. So here's the thing: if you're in a plane, and this is how the astronauts train. They go. It wouldn't work exactly like this, but essentially, you go up in a plane, you go to a high enough altitude at a steady rate, and you go up and down. You can simulate zero gravity, and the alcohol would flow out of the bottle like this. So essentially, again, it's kind of where fact meets fiction for a bit there. It's kind of funny. It wouldn't work this cleanly that the way they're kind of going right down to the water. It'd have to be like around like 30,000. I think it's 30,000 feet in the air, and just kind of go up and down from that. But it's still pretty impressive. Again, this is like a great comedy premise, and Spielberg's a great fan of Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello, and he's always used that comparison when he's like talking about kind of comedy pairing. So I assume he's a fan of those characters, and you kind of get like a comedy premise here. Where, okay, it's almost like a Keenan and Kel moment too. Like he's like Kel is like messed around in the back, and he's drank the fuel essentially, and now it's like, oh, here it goes. So the captain in that essentially Captain Haddock
goes. Who loves orange soda? Haddock loves orange soda.
Where essentially it's that where he's good again. Where it's a Nickelodeon produced movie. I don't think we're going too far off the reservation.
It's like the idiot obsessed with a beverage.
Yeah. So again, let me mention. So initially I hated the fume gag, but this saved it for me. This payoff saved it.
Sense.
Like that's what I'm saying. Before, when it just was introduced, it's like, okay, it's kind of unneeded. But this scene saved it for me. It's like, okay, we paid that off. That's really good. Fume. So again, Andy Serkis is just so delightful. He's selling every line he's had. He's really doing it for me. And again, this is like, okay, if he's such a drunk, he would be able to fuel a plane like this.
Exactly.
That's cartoon logic. Does
anyone know if that would actually work?
Of course not. It wouldn't work, but it would be.
I didn't think so.
I'll give the zero gravity thing. Yes, that's.
I think this movie could almost be set in the same universe as the Indiana Jones movies.
I think so. Yeah. Like I like to think it is.
Like it's got the same physics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The same like that. That's just dumb luck.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta tell you this. I love
the skeleton when the guy gets struck by lightning.
Yeah.
He's there for like half a second.
The parachuting French guys.
Really scary lightning strikes here, by the way.
And we never see those guys again.
Nope.
Really went the other way. Now this is kind of like that Raiders thing I'm talking about here, where it's like, even though the action it seems to have ended, but no, there's still like an action beat here. Okay, so Haddock has to go over and save Tintin before he gets his head chopped off. It's almost like Tiki. I think you've seen at least this episode. It's almost like that moment from Preacher after the action sequence, and then the chainsaw is going to the preacher for a moment. They're like, "Oh, okay, I gotta stop the chainsaw from cutting his head off."
That is also, speaking of, like, this is also another thing that's hard to animate: sand.
Oh, of course. Oh my God, yes.
You know why sand's hard to animate?
Why?
Because it's harsh and coarse and rough.
Well, yes, I think you're right about that. Yes, it's hard and coarse.
And you see, that sand line right there is why I like Attack of the Clones better than Solo.
Come on, that's still, come on. You yourself said you've hated Attack of the Clones before. Come on.
Yeah, and I also hate Solo, so what
I
are you
still think you're a little harsh on Solo. Come on.
Oh, Chewbacca, I'm not going to say that.
That was a nice love story in Solo.
Oh, it's not like basic communication or anything.
Anyway, back to the sand.
It's another great example. What?
Solo was competent, Attack of the Clones was not. There, let's just leave it at that.
Anyway, Sandy, you were saying.
Another great example of taking costumes straight from the comics, the TV series.
Yeah, so if I'm right, this is a lot. Basically, this whole sequence here, basically all this and kind of the. I keep thinking of it like the French Foreign Legion stuff. I know it's not the French Foreign Legion stuff. It just always reminds me of we go to the fort. Essentially, we go to the fort in near Bahar. This whole thing is from the crab with the golden claws.
Even the suspender bit when Snowy pulled back on his suspender, even that's from the comics.
Exactly, it's like pulled panel for panel. It's astounding.
Where did Snow even get that bone though?
You know what I thought it was? I thought it was like a camel bone. That's what I assumed.
Yeah, I think he pulled it off a dead animal.
It'd be amazing if it was like a dinosaur bone hidden there, but I think it's just probably more likely a camel bone.
Probably. Oh yeah, there it is.
We wanted a Jurassic Park reference though. It's like, hey.
Wouldn't it be funny if this was like the movie that connects all the Spielberg movies?
It'd be delightful, but unlikely.
Like, this is like the universe, because we've got the Jurassic Park bone, we've got the ET bike, of course, we've got a bunch of Raider stuff, we have the Catch Me If You Can sequence.
So, Jacob, here's your thing. Here's the transition.
Now, how about sand transitioning into water? That's got to be difficult.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but this is amazing looking though. Oh my god, this is a beautiful transition.
I love how seamless it is though.
Yeah.
Like, guys, Spielberg's cinematic universe.
Look at this great like close up here too. Again, from one haddock to the other, and again, like you see Red Rackham's flag in the reflection of the spyglass. Is just this all.
I love how like it's seamlessly translates to the ship, and then back to him. It's like I love how seamless all that is.
Yeah, the transitionings are great.
So it's a simple idea, but I like the whole pirate roots of like for a sailor. It's kind of a good like kind of world building.
Technically, this is another thing that Spielberg's always wanted to do. He's always wanted to direct a pirate movie.
Well, I think if Hook was any,
did direct a pirate movie.
I mean, he always wanted like direct one of he was originally like wanting to do like a Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
A real one, not one with Dustin Hoffman. I mean, a real one.
Hate Peter Pan.
Bad form, Peter. Bad form, Steven. Bad form.
Like he's always wanted to direct like a full.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Like, he's always wanted to do like a full-fledged pirate feature.
I think he'd be good.
He's originally attached like do a pirate.
Honestly, if anyone could revive the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, it'd be this man.
You know what movie I really want to see him
do it without Jack Sparrow. Start fresh. Just use the name Pirates of the Caribbean. Essentially, have it be a reboot.
That's a really cool detail. We see that the ancestor of the butler is on the ship with them there.
Do you know what I really want to see Spielberg direct?
What?
Pirate Latitudes.
I have no idea what that is, Jacob. I'm sorry.
It's a Michael Crichton pirate book.
Ooh, Michael Crichton.
Well, Crichton definitely intrigues me.
Like Spielberg's actually attached to direct it, but just no one knows when it's ever going to come out.
Okay, so it's like a Guillermo del Toro Haunted Mansion movie that's never going to happen.
Anyway.
We get some pretty intense sword fighting here. I mean, this guy gets stabbed in the neck and slashed up the face.
Like I said, this is a movie that would never exist when the whole, and all the guns are being replaced by walkie-talkies era was going on.
And what's great, too, is that we do all this with, it's kind of a Nolan method here, where there's no blood at all, and we can get away with all this.
Mm-hmm.
And he has lightning behind him, too. I mean, how much cooler can you get?
Like, again, this would be, so much stuff that would be very hard to animate here would be, it's all going on at once. Like, fire, water, all this action.
Now, look, to address this again, I think this fits into it's cool and it's dazzling, but at the same time, it is kind of we're dragging this on a little bit long here. And this is all great. It's just kind of we're
convoluted is the wrong word for Haddock's backstory, but at the same point, I feel like Dragon, you hit the nail right on the head. I feel like it's just kind of like Haddock's backstory. Like I almost feel like they don't necessarily overcomplicate it, but they do draw it out. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. So I think when we show it, it's a little drawn out. However, here's one thing in terms of the only convoluted thing I have 2 bits of convolutedness for the movie. There's 2 small bits though. One is here. Overall here, what we do with Haddock here. So the idea that when he's sobering up right now, it's the whole gag of it took you a day in the Sahara to sober up. That's a great line. That's a great idea. My issue is I don't understand why we didn't streamline it to Haddock, when he sobers up, then he remembers everything. But instead, it's then he drinks again, then he remembers. It's like we have to restart him to get him to remember. It's kind of, you know what I mean? I guess the logic was the way they went with it. The way they did is that if Haddock, when he sobers up, and as you see, when he fully sobers up, he forgets Tintin. And he forgets things. He's almost like an entirely different person. And then basically him drinking jumpstarts his personality.
So basically like an Indiana Jones version of 51st States.
I think it's more like the way I see it, it's more like a Bender almost.
Maybe. You mean Bender from Futurama, or you mean like a Bender?
Where he has to be just drunk enough.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with that.
Makes sense.
But what I'm saying is they wanted Haddock to still remember Tintin, also be himself. Basically, if he was 2 personalities, then it wouldn't work. So I guess that was the logic behind that choice. But I don't know. I just feel it might have been simpler. Just he remembers all this, and then Tintin just tells him this when he's drunk again. I don't know. But I love this. This outpost is like using like the time period very well for me. All this, the outpost here.
It's kind of this scene kind of does remind me of like the digging scene from Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it is. Again, this the Afghar outpost. It is. Yours is kind of Raiders-esque too, I guess. Yeah.
And I think Spielberg could do all of this from the safety and comfort of a green screen studio.
Yeah, I was the one who gave Steven that. I was the one that gave Steven that idea, and I'm very proud of it. Of course, Indy was my idea as well.
No, I sat Steven
we
down.
need to do an indie that's all CGI, but the fans won't stand for that, Steven. So I've got this great animated series.
Right. What I did is I sat Steven down and I told him that, Steven, what you need to do.
I sat Steven down and I slapped him around a little, just to get his attention. I was like, Steven, you listen and you'll get your cookie.
Okay, anyway, this is just going off the rails and crazy real fast. By the way, it's a little touch. I love how we refer to surgical alcohol as spirits, by the way. I just love that. It's like, it's called spirits. And of course, again, I still think the only bit of convoluted is like how we just we reboot him here. But by the same token, I do love the animation, the gag that when he restarts like this, he's a raving madman. He basically is like the Wolf Man, like bursting through it's like a monster movie when he bursts through the door here. It's basically the Wolf Man meets a pirate. That's essentially what happens when he restarts himself here.
He shatters that door like glass. I mean,
yeah,
I think solid wood.
Yeah, apparently it's more like balsa wood, I guess.
But again, like I said, it's just the only problem is this backstory. It feels like it's going on for like multiple scenes. You know,
it feels like we just should have done all of it in one go, and
it's like, all right, I get it. We're going back and forth. Impressive sword fighting. All right, like someone hired Robert Zemeckis to direct the sequences this day.
If it were, look, I don't want to just try to rewrite the movie because I would say this. Let's say that, okay, so in the Sahara, he remembered the whole story. We abbreviated a little bit. We cut out some of the extended, fighting stuff. He remembers it all, and then when he comes to after this awesome sequence where he drinks and he comes alive again, he then we go over it was Rackham. He's the guy. Like that's the one bit we reveal. Like, he's the guy. We got to do this now.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder who Red Rackham is.
And again, they treat this like it's a big reveal. I mean, I do like kind of the red bandana look on him, though, hence the whole Red Rackham. But it just feels like we have a good idea of who it is. It's not that big of a like a lineage thing. I mean, not as dramatic as they think it is. And even if you're a diehard Tintin fan, it's like it would be mind blowing to you. I don't think it's going to be. You can probably connect. I don't think it's given away, but I don't think it's like a big deal. It's like, okay, so he's related to him, right?
Right.
That.
I'm sorry, guys, but that's why I do call this basically a Diet Coke Raiders, because it has the revelations and beats of Raiders. I just don't think those revelations or beats are nearly as strong or iconic.
I say, what's wrong with Diet Coke? It's just.
I don't personally drink Diet Coke.
Diet Coke's a bit insulting to this, though.
Well,
that's a bit much.
At least it's Diet Coke, Jacob. At least it's on brand. At least I didn't just say a Diet Cola or like a Diet Shasta or something.
Again, here's the only other deaths we had. Again, via shark, via Jaws here, and
they're underwater. Hey, here.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, Sandy, you're absolutely right. But to be fair, though, they went really fast, and they weren't really animated like wet and splishy and splashy. To be fair, it wasn't like underwater. It's like it wasn't really like a splash in animation.
You can stretch it, but they were underwater.
I'll give you that. Okay, you're right about that. I redact what I say. I told you I may have been wrong about that when we get there. You're right. Okay.
Well, and it's only that one shot though. It's only less than less than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Little clever idea here of you have the feather in your cap like a secret knife.
A pirate always thinks ahead.
Yeah. Okay, this is a fun gag here where they're all they have their guns drawn. There's the bottle here. And no, he puts the drink down because he has other things to do. Need all my wits about me. He puts the bottle down.
Yes.
And of course, just picks up the sword. It's still dangerous. So, I mean, honestly, like this is what we need to get to. This is the main point that we need to get to. We're okay. He's going to blow up his own treasure. But after that, his men get killed in retaliation. He blows up. He blows up the treasure. Those are the main story points to hit in all this flashback.
Right, right.
Anyway, this is a good. Like, honestly, this is the sword fight I really want between these two guys. This is where things are interesting and really tied to the plot. Roki keeps lighting and unlighting this fuse here. A nice little active sequence here.
It's a good thing he has a lot of lanterns on the ship.
Well, it gets dark at night.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you understand that.
But I'm sorry, guys. Again, this whole flashback scene, this, I really do. I can pinpoint this. Like, it's all good stuff. It's just, this really does kind of speak to my problem I have with this movie. Is like, it drags, man. It's like, it goes on for like at least a good 10 minutes. And Spielberg is just like this is like he's in rare bad form, Steven.
I don't think you're wrong. Again, it's where the pace. I think the pace in the movie is good, with the exception when we draw out the effects, where like we overextended all the sword fighting from earlier, and that makes the main plot here feel like, okay, we're still doing this, instead of like, okay, this is where we should revel in this right now.
And I gotta say, this is like kind of the point in the movie where I'm like, all right, if I were in the movie theater, this is where I'd go refill my drink. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's, again, we're really going strong with the Coca-Cola comparison with this one.
This is where I go refill my Diet Coke, and I'd be like, hey, person working the movie theater, refill my Diet Coke, just like this movie is a Diet Coke version of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Like he's rolling his eyes like, oh, this guy again.
You know, it's funny. I've actually like tried to start up conversations like with people at the movie theater, and they're just like, whatever. It's like they probably just hate their jobs and hate me.
Well, I'm saying if you're demanding, hey, bring me more Coke, if you're doing it like that.
I'm not like that. I'm just saying, like, sometimes I'd try and strike up like conversations like, hey, so have you seen Incredibles 2 yet? And they're just like, oh yeah, you'll like it.
No, Tiki, you strike up the conversation when you're buying the ticket. That's when you get all that. They want you to. That's when you should strike up the conversation, not after that point.
You see, that's my problem, because I strike it up with the ticket taker.
That's the problem. You shouldn't do anyway.
You're just like, bad form, Tiki.
Bad form, Tiki. Bad form.
I love this bad form shit. It's going to become a running gag on the channel.
Yeah, listen, I do love this. I love how this pays off, like the hat full of the hat full of treasure. Raining gold, do 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 do.
Oh my God, we're still doing this. Do you see my point? I mean, I know
it's going down. All right, are you happy now? It's over.
It's painfully long. I'm sorry.
We agree with you. What more do you want? You want the money from my wallet? What do you want?
Tiki in the cartoon, it shows him going to the island and burying the treasure.
Well, you see, I don't mind that in a cartoon, because it's a cartoon. It's a serialized series. That's fine. It's just it's the pace of the movie that gets thrown off to me. This bit just does not feel like a movie. It's just, and again, it's just very showy. I don't know.
All right, so here's the weird transition.
I wish I liked this movie more than I did, guys. Because as it stands, I like this movie, but I definitely don't love it, and I wish I loved it.
Okay, watch. This is the weird transition I'm talking about here. Like, look how weird that transition is. It's like the hands.
Oh God, yeah, right.
I love all the other transitions in this movie. Just that one's like, what the heck did I just? What?
I mean, it's still like I like the fact that like it keeps consistent with the fact that it's ambitious, at least.
It's definitely creative.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, when we're in the, with Tintin with the hat and everything, when we're kind of walking through the streets here, the marketplace reminds me of Cairo from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Oh, this whole sequence is definitely it's definitely a version of that. And I won't even say it's a Diet Coke version of Cairo. I will also say it's a Pepsi version of Cairo.
We really needed Salah in this scene.
Tiki, Pepsi's even worse. Pepsi's even
worse than Diet Coke, really?
Yeah, unless you're talking about fountain Pepsi.
Hold. A little audio.
What's going on? Good lord.
Jacob is also God, folks, in case you don't know. Occasionally he has to do the whole voice of God thing.
It's literally like Preacher. When he speaks, he has like the whole booming echo in the voice. That's what he's trying to tell us to do.
Oh my gosh, no.
Hi there, God.
He's still working at it. Anyway, so we had Thompson and Thompson show up again. By the way, I love this, and I don't know if it's just me reading into this, but I just love the idea that Thompson and Thompson, they traveled all this way just to return Tintin's wallet. That's what I read it as, and I love that. I mean, yes, they got a telegram. The telegraph, they didn't really factor in the importance of the telegraph. That's at least what they led on to. Sandy, tell the folks about our opera singer here. Tell them about it.
Yes, so she was an original character from the comics, of course. What exactly are you looking for from me?
Well, I mean, the fact she was she was a regular character, wasn't she? She was like one of the main supportings.
I don't think so.
Maybe not main, but regular. Like she was like kind of regularly featured in there or something.
Not that I remember. I mean, I've seen a lot of the original TV series, and she only appeared, I think, once or twice, maybe twice.
Let me ask you this though, and do you know if she and Haddock maybe had like a romantic thing or like a thing where maybe one of them liked the other one? Because they kind of hinted that here, like what a dish. Like I was wondering if like there was like some relationship in the comics.
In the comics, I wouldn't know, but in the TV series, I can almost guarantee not, just because that would just convolute.
That's fair. I just wasn't sure.
Hey, Jacob, you there?
Yep.
There we go.
We have a new running gag for you. You are you're just an average, everyday guy. You're just like an average, everyday guy from Ohio. A podcaster. But Jacob, you are also God, motherfucker.
Maybe let's not make light of our friend's misfortune here. Let's not.
And every time your audio glitches out, like Jacob, it's just like, oh, I am God now, and I'm speaking to you from the heavens.
Honestly, it sounds like on Preacher when the God voice is malfunctioning. I swear to God, when the God voice is malfunctioning, when the voice of Genesis is malfunctioning on that show, it sounds exactly like.
Maybe that's like how they actually do that sound effect. It's just they pull up a Hangout and just like get an audio.
Okay. Let's take so many shots at Jacob.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to rag on you. I just found it very amusing. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's happening once more. Okay. By the way, little crab fountain. I believe a reference to the title, the whole golden the crab with the golden claws, right?
Yeah.
Don't need to workshop it, buddy. No go.
Doesn't take the longest it's ever gone. Like usually it goes away right away.
Oh, so from what I understand, Sandy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This guy here, the other boat owner here, this guy like in front row right here.
Yeah,
I believe he was our actual bad guy, at least the master manipulator behind the whole either the Secret of the Unicorn. Like he was like a lead bad guy in one of these Tintin stories.
It's been some time. Not that I remember. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, by the way, so here's the T. I'll go with you here. So again, we had basically we the only other bit of convoluted stuff I really had with this movie was we have this weird. I call it convoluted, but it only lasts for like a really brief bit. It was so random. Like, do we really need this?
No.
After. Well, no, not that, but getting to it here. Where the whole like you were drunk subplot that just feels like he's drunk. He's going to be drunk. Why is this like a big reveal? Well,
Mount on you. I don't know why. This is going to sound really random, but just because of the Peter Jackson of it all, I'm gonna go with it. When Jamie Bell says, "I can smell it on you," like to me sounds like Frodo Baggins scolding Samwise Gamgee. Smell it on you, Sam.
Mr. Tintin.
You were the one who threw out the bread, Sam. I'm gonna trust Gollum over you.
But I'm not alone in this, right? I mean, that it is kind of like a random bit where we treat like it was like a big big trust moment.
Dragon, I think the way I can explain that is it's like the one moment in the movie where we have to kind of pause and like, reflect on the alcoholism. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it just feels really forced because it was a nice moment where had to put down the bottle, and then he saved the scroll. Like he's trying to do right by Tintin here. That's nice, but still, it's like. But here's the reason it bugs me is the fact that we get over it really fast, though. That's the thing. Is like I can still smell it on you. Then it gets over like, okay, well, he's part of the action now. We just completely forgot. We kind of sidestepped that completely. Right. Like, what was the point? Or we're jumping ahead a little bit with that. It's like about to unfurl. Got hit over the head with things. So again, I love using the. If we're not going to have this character as like a main fixture of the story, I love that we use her as a plot point here, where she's. She does like the opera, like the high pitch. Now, again, it's a clever little way of use this performer to crack open the bulletproof glass. That's really neat.
No, it's bulletproof, but not apparently vocal proof.
And again, it's like the physics of a cartoon that would only work in an animated movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've seen this plot line used in like '60s television. Like Get Smart used this plot line, or like you have the opera singer who hits the high note and cracks the bulletproof glass. Like it's an old school plot point. So
okay.
It was refreshing. Like, yeah, use that plot point.
I mean, it's plausible. I mean, I think the fact that it's animated makes it more plausible.
Ben Salad, according to the subtitles, that's who the host of the evening is. That guy.
Salad.
Salad, yes. Like Pearl from SpongeBob. Salad. Salad.
But unlike Pearl, he's not being pretentious.
True. I do love Lori Allen though. She's a good voice actress.
Was that actually her doing the opera though?
No, it's not her doing the opera. I'm mentioning just Pearl from SpongeBob in general. So, Lori Allen.
Sorry, that's how I got messed up.
No, Jacob,
casting choice right there.
I know. I think Jacob. I think you and your Google Hangouts voice you and her need to have
sing off
a vocal match.
Oh God!
Because last time I wasn't even talking.
Yeah, like I don't want to make like a big gag about her or anything, but you might be like possessed by a demon or something.
Right. That's not making a gag out of it saying something like that. Right.
The funny thing was the second time I wasn't even talking.
Yeah, it's like picking up room noise or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
The only thing is, it does that completely randomly too.
Okay, so let's talk about this scene for a second. So again, I'm getting a sense in the room here. Yeah, this is a scene where we're all kind of talking about it goes on really long, right?
Yes, but actually, this is like a sequence that I really like.
I like it too because it feels very Last Crusade-esque, and it feels like you want the sidecar thing.
I actually think this is the high point of the movie.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed this scene too. I think goes on like in the middle. I think it goes on for a smidge long. But has
okay, the thing that makes it for me is the water, because the water gives it a sense of progression throughout the whole thing.
The water's a nice. Go on.
The most impressive thing to me, though, is like how the later sequence is all done in entirely one shot.
That is really impressive. You have the digital crane thing he's got going on here. Well, basically we have like this great kind of economy over space in the kind of the digital computer here, and we have some great insane kind of over the top things here, like the hotel that has the tank in the middle of it. It's this tank coated in a hotel. Giving chase. I mean, that's great. Of course, separating the sidecars. It's an insane. I marvel at from an animation standpoint. I think, again, like I don't have it. I would like generally. I say again. I think basically
Goldberg machine.
It is Rube Goldberg-esque, and I mean, here's the thing. It's like this is the Polar. Remember the Polar Express where we had that bit where like the ticket got. We had that weird like we're celebrating the effects.
Oh God, yes, fuck that sequence.
Here's what I'm saying. So this is that scene done right.
This movie is so much infinitely better than Polar Express, and I kind of came around on Polar Express.
And I like Polar Express too, but I will say easily this movie is way better than Polar Express. I don't like Polar Express though. And,
Polar Express just seems kind of like just like classic. Like you can't touch it because it's just
But it's also kind of like the definitive, like, uncanny valley motion capture movie.
Yeah.
No,
Mars Needs Moms was pretty bad as well. I mean,
I can't remember. Did Polar Express come before or after Beowulf?
Before.
yeah.
Yeah, then it was kind of the first.
Beowulf's big gimmick was it was in 3D. Beowulf was like one of the big pre-Avatar 3D movies.
Right.
Yeah, Polar Express was 2004. I think Beowulf was 2007.
Real quick, I think it's coming up if it hasn't already. No, it's coming up.
Both Robert Zemeckis, though.
Yeah, it's coming up here. I love I love how the bike turns into a zip line. It's one of my favorite bits. I know it's impractical, but it's awesome. I love it. So Tintin, like he's about to ride up. He's kind of on an incline here, and he's gonna lose the bike here. And there we go. Like the front wheel turns into a zip line. It's just that's. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's cool. There's so many just crazy things happening here. It's just
see, that's the difference between between what we had with the ship. The ship went on long, but what we have here is we're changing it up each frame, though. Something different's happening each time. It's not just kind of like we're not just continuing what we've seen before.
That's good. What's impressive is that's like a solid 3 or 4 minutes of a straight one shot.
Yeah, this is roughly 3 minutes continuously.
Of a 3-minute action scene, and that's hard to pull off in any medium.
Yeah. To be fair, Better Call Saul had an 8-minute oneer. Just a little.
And Mr. Robot had a whole episode runner.
Really?
Which did?
Yeah. You don't remember that one?
You mean to tell me the whole episode that was a oneer?
Yes.
What show?
Mr. Robot.
In season 3. Yes.
I'm not remembering it off the top of my head.
It was the one where they were all in the building the whole episode.
Oh my god! Oh, that was a one. Oh my god, you're right.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I remember it. Yeah,
Dude, I told you, season 3 of Mr. Robot. Like, we're going on a complete tangent here, but season 3 of Mr. Robot, damn good television.
Yeah, real quick, this is a really good train. I really respect the choice that we didn't see. And again, now we're talking about maybe it's because they just didn't want to animate it. I love that. I remember watching this and I thought, I respect that we didn't do the thing we know was going to happen. Okay, Tim's going to jump in the water. He's going to save Haddock. We've seen this, been there, done that. But in this case, they didn't do it probably because of the animation budget. But still, it's like we just showed him walking away. It was kind of an inspired choice, but probably done at practicality. Love Thompson and Thompson staying at this hotel. And if you look in that sequence, you can actually see him on top of the hotel during that chase.
Talk about a room with a view.
Yeah. So this is a really nice pep talk from Haddock here. It's kind of 2 really good messages that he exposits here, where it's never let anyone never doubt yourself. It's not that. It's about sending out signals. Like, never send out the wrong signal. Whatever signal everyone's throwing at you, don't show them that they're right. Essentially, it's like you kind of send out positive signals. Essentially, it's kind of nice.
Well, it's a nice kind of role reversal, and I like that kind of role reversal in screenplays and storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, by the end of the movie, the lead character should essentially switch philosophies.
I also like the whole hit a wall thing. I like that we had that. We keep setting this idea up where in the beginning, Snowy, you went through the hole in the wall, and we kind of visually set up that idea. Now we're saying it with Haddock here. We're like, hey, you hit a wall, you go through it.
Uh-huh.
Of course, it's going to pay off big time when we get to the end of Act 3. Again, Haddock speaking from experience here, which is really nice. Got some good acting on here from Dirkus.
So I feel like the big chase scene is kind of like the peak of the movie, and the rest of the movie is just sort of wrap up. And I also feel like that's a bit of a flaw because we have about 15 minutes left until we cut to credits. What do you guys think about that? And maybe that's a Peter Jackson thing, honestly, because Peter Jackson is kind of known for that type of shit.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like the movie's quite over yet. It seems like there should be at least another, I don't know, half hour maybe.
Well, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that I just feel like the movie loses a bit of momentum after that big chase scene. It's just like after that big chase scene, it's like, all right, well, we've seen the high point of the movie. Now what's left? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this whole climax here, it's never really quite worked with me. Like I said before, I just feel like it's missing something big.
From what I heard,
Like they're already here. See, they're already here.
Yeah. From what I heard, this whole climax was very likely, unless it's like pulled from like deep cuts, like Tintin stuff. It's not from the main three source materials. It's all like kind of this whole climax with the cranes, kind of a Spielberg invention, from what I understood.
Now I know Spielberg
Mark Webb is watching this and just taking notes. Like, yeah. I've got to do it. I've got to do an end sequence with cranes. Oh yes, this is gold.
I do like kind of the surprise of the defeat here for a moment, where you lift the bad guy up with from the car. It's like, hey, that's kind of surprising. And of course, we kind of turn the crane into like a wrecking ball with the car. It's kind of
like, I know Spielberg never exactly and usually never writes anything, but how often involved is he like actually in like the screenplay process?
Well, in this, I don't think he. I think Spielberg mostly be with alterations to the screenplay. Unless it's something like he was involved in developing, which this I don't think was the case. I think he just supervised. He like signed off on what the draft that was turned in. So I think he agreed with the idea and just kind of how it played out.
I mean, I know he's no stranger to writing, because I know he's written several of his films and several others. But I'm just wondering, like, that was just all I wanted to know. Was like, does he actually like contribute to the story at all?
Well, I don't know if he directly came up with the whole crane thing. I just know like he had to sign off on the crane thing. That's what I'm kind of hinting at.
All right. Because it's not unheard of for like the director to be involved in like some of the story process just on an uncredited capacity.
I just kind of like that we take we take Sakharine off of his high horse here. Where it's like, hey, swing me the other way, just like in a helpless position at the moment. It's kind of delighted in that. Of course, then he's in the red crane. Of course, like if you need something that's akin to it, hey, he's a red rackham, get it? It's kind of the weird show. It's like dueling cranes, like the dueling pirate ships. I mean, I don't know what it is. I think in concept, it's kind of interesting. In practice, it goes on a bit long.
Such an out of left field. Like, this finale just does not represent the grandeur that this movie has built up before it. You know, it's just kind of like, all right, we got all this cool adventure, and then we do this random shit with the cranes, and then it's over.
That's right. This scene, it doesn't really. This scene should define basically what Tintin is, and I feel like
this scene should have been. I feel like maybe this scene and the big chase scene in the desert should have been swapped.
The crab with the golden claw, that was the logo on the side of the box.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I honestly think it would have been kind of like, it's like shown that Sakharine has like some kind of sword built in it, or at least some kind of sharp implement built into his cane. It would have been like interesting to like see him battle, like have them like have some kind of actual sword fight with like.
Well, they do have a sword fight with his with his cane and with kind of the machete that he's kind of using there. So we still get that. We just should have focused on that sword fight before we did the crane thing. I think what you mean, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the sword fight, just like the crane fight, just like a big substitute to sword fight, almost.
Exactly.
I mean, don't get me wrong; it's an impressive sequence. I just think it would have tied together with their ancestors.
I mean, I'm being honest with you guys. I feel like it fits in just as well to this movie as it does to The Amazing Spider-Man, which is not very well at all.
Okay, let's see. To be fair, the crane, it's not like a big fight with the cranes. It's just like the cranes are used like, hey, let's show Spider-Man our support. Cranes. That's about it.
Okay, the thing that, if we're going to go off on a fucking tangent with this, the thing that bothers me about that whole thing is like, man, that must be like the best union in the world because they really got there in a hurry.
Well, they're New Yorkers, they're this.
If you mess with Spider-Man, you mess with New York.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
I love how Kevin Smith just adds like profanity to that bit. Yeah, if you mess with Spider-Man, you mess with all of fucking New York. Anyways.
I mean, I like the sword fight here that we get.
Kevin Smith.
You know, Kevin.
I'm
Smith.
sorry, that was like a random poll, but they were talking about Spider-Man at one of the Kevin Smith podcasts, and he's just like going off like, yeah, man, I love that. It's you know how Kevin Smith just gets passionate. Like, if you mess with Spider-Man, you mess with all of fucking New York.
Okay, real quick.
Oh, you're not talking about the movie then.
No. I'm talking about that's like
Okay.
Kevin Smith's like a real New Yorker. That's how a real New Yorker would say that.
Oh, because I remember in the original Sam Raimi 2002 Spider-Man, there's that scene at the end with the bridge, all the New Yorkers.
And that's what he was
Sandy,
talking.
yes, good boy. That's what we're referencing.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure, because you said Kevin Smith, but Kevin Smith's not in that movie. I was just trying to...
Kevin Smith, I'm sorry.
Can we get off the Kevin Smith thing just for a minute? All right, so I like that Haddock's using the bottle.
I do like the oddly poetic thing of like him actually defeating Sagarin with the alcohol bottles.
And yes, I agree with Jacob very much so. Yes,
he's just a bit easily arrested though. It's like he's not even putting up a fight when he's arrested.
Of course, he punts the bottle here and like bops him on the head. It's just it's great. And I think
my problem with Sagarin is like, he's got a good look to him. He's not menacing. He's not like a classic Spielberg villain in that way. It's like this guy is never going to be like a Professor Screw Eyes from We're Back, where he's going to give kids nightmares. You know what I mean?
Well, not a Spielberg film, but
well, it's Spielberg produced.
Right. Spielberg produced. Right. Of course, that means basically half of cinema. It was all Spielberg produced. So
okay, but you know what? All right. And that's an exaggeration, and you know it.
Oh, come on! He has produced all the great movies. Come on,
I don't want to have
Back
this.
to the Future, Men in Black.
All right. So
we should have gotten calculus at the end here. We really should have.
To get us to the status quo of the comics. Is that right?
What?
Like this right here, what we're seeing right now is kind of like status quo with the comics.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, the model and spy call here, that is basically like right from the comics, the design and everything.
So, like, what does Haddock live there, or does he just?
No. This house used to belong to his ancestors, but since his whole family is gone, the house was put up for auction because he couldn't afford it.
Right.
I think that's what it was. But
well, they reference that as much, so I guess that I could buy that. Yeah. Of course, I do like how we get to see the kind of cool basement of it all. Basically, we kind of now this section onward is kind of it's like a Hardy Boys epilogue, because again, Tintin for the most part feels like kind of Hardy Boys meets young Indiana Jones.
He's like a much cooler version of the Hardy Boys.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, Tintin is kind of like one of the coolest versions of the Hardy Boys. Especially, I love that we mix this. We have this. He's a reporter, but he has like at least earlier in the movie, he has this Tintin look, and he has that jacket, which looks like a detective's jacket. So it's kind of a mix of what he's going for there. The coat and the flashlight, very detective-esque, but he's dressed like a reporter.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's like kind of a good. I think it's a good combination of balance. I think overall for Tintin, he is kind of a Hardy Boys mystery element with kind of the action of Raiders of the Lost Ark for kids. Good light effects here, by the way. It's like the refraction of like the glare.
Oh yeah.
You can see the dust in the air.
Light, frickin' J.J. Abrams.
That's wetter magic, baby. Get wetter.
And you're throwing unnecessary shit all over the place tonight.
Yeah, well.
And emphasis on the unnecessary.
At least I'm not saying that Brad Bird's creatively bankrupt. At least I'm not. That was probably a low moment for me.
That was a very low moment for you.
And now you. Yeah. The golden Eagles cross. Is all this actually? Is that guy's like actually true? Like did that guy's like actually a realistic figure?
Well, it beats me. I think it might be some pulled from the. I have no idea, honestly.
I mean, a lot of the stuff in Tintin's world is actually based in like semi-reality.
They do. Oh, Sandy, you can probably speak to this. Don't they do like kind of political satire or political comedy, and just like basically they reference all sorts of things from politics to like kind of what's kind of working in the world and like all sorts of stuff that's kind of pulled from real life, right?
You mean in the series?
Yeah, 'cause again, they did kind of yeah in the series and the comics in general, like the whole whole shebang. Like they've commentated on kind of stuff in the real world, like again the moon landing, for example, with the whole planet. The spaceship we had homaged in the opening credits.
Yeah. I'm kind of at a loss of figuring out what you're asking here.
What he's asking, is like if he's confirming like here's like sort of a lot of political commentary and like non-social commentary and satire into his work.
Gee, guys, you're asking me all these questions. I'm sorry.
Kind of a yes or no answer, Sandy, but okay.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm actually trying to answer the question. It's like
I think it's a yes, but I don't know.
Maybe not necessarily in the cartoon, but in the comics, it has been confirmed. Like he inserted with like a satire, comedy, and even like slapstick humor too. So not far off from this movie, actually.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, the globe here, the whole like when we unlock the globe, like the extra island on the globe, we have the treasure inside. So, from what I understand, in the book, it worked a lot better. But I know I still like it here. It's basically the logic of basically the ending of the movie, the whole like, hey, we're gonna take a submarine to get the rest of the treasure. That's what the whole third book was more about. Like that whole we kind of the Red Rack seeking out Red Rackham's treasure is essentially that third book, the whole Red Rackham's treasure book.
Mm.
And from what I understand, the idea is like they went to search for the treasure in a submarine, they couldn't find it, and they went back and was like, hey, that island that we went to, it's on this globe. They pushed the button, and there's the treasure that they couldn't find. It was just all that was in the hat. That's from what I looked into. I think the Dom or something told me that. I was watching like a kind of an adaptation thing, like seeing what kind of made it into the movie, what did, and I think that's what he said. But regardless, I love this. I love the visual that what mattered to Haddock was kind of the hat, the legacy, reclaiming kind of the fulfilling his family's prophecy before the treasure. The treasure is like the ultimate cherry on top. And this 400 weight of gold was just like, okay, that's a whole extra pie that we left in the fridge that we didn't know existed. Like, oh my god, let's pick up, man.
I don't like these credits. How they look here. It just doesn't seem to fit.
You don't like the bounce of the credits, or what?
No.
I do like the whole like how we ended on Snowy though. I mean, that isn't it? Did they do that in the animated show?
We ended on kind of like the iris effect.
Yeah, I like the iris effect. Is that from anything?
Sure it is. But yeah, this basically is where Red Rackham's treasure, the comic picks up, where calculus is basically introduced, and he invents this machine that allows them to it's a submarine basically that allows them to go down and retrieve the treasure.
And honestly, that's what I think. If they did a sequel, at the very least they'd start off with that, where they introduce this guy and they'd have a submarine. That's my guess of how they would continue this story.
I'd also be kind of fine with like being an entirely separate adventure entirely.
It could just be like a James Bond coda at the top of the movie, where like, hey, we're in the submarine. The submarine's taking on water. Like, oh my god, do you see the treasure? No, it's not there. Ah.
But you know what I mean? Like they could do almost like a pulp series where like it's like a different adventure every time, or at least like minor callbacks even.
Sure.
So.
Okay, so I guess final thoughts, guys.
Yeah, like I said, guys, I think this conversation, it turned me around a little bit, but I'm definitely the negative Nelly in the room here on this one. It's not a bad movie. It's just like it's one that kind of drags for me a little bit, and I just kind of feel like at the end of the day, I feel like the pacing is both too fast and too slow in some spots, which makes it overall a very uneven movie for me. And I'm someone who's just kind of like a stickler for that kind of stuff. So I don't know, it's certainly not bad. It's not, like I said, I wanted to like this movie more than I did upon revisiting it. I thought it was going to be like this hidden gem in the Spielberg canon. And to me, it's just, I feel like its legacy is kind of like right where it needs to be. Like, it's not like it's not a movie that people go nuts for. It's not a movie that has this huge, like, oh my God, this is the thing that turned things around for Spielberg, but it is a very solid little action flick, and it does have a solid, healthy following behind it. And I feel like that's what it deserves. So, while I'm not the biggest fan in the world of it, I feel like it definitely has its place.
Fun fact, though, this is actually the first non-Pixar movie to win the Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature.
Hey.
All right, nice. Final thoughts, guys. Final thoughts.
Okay, for me, I thought it was a great film. It was so well animated. It was a rich character piece. I felt for all ages, and I really think that's something we shouldn't overlook. And it's kind of a good movie for all ages. And it's to me, it was kind of like a time capsule of Spielberg's history with adventure films. Again, it felt like a good tribute to like the Raiders of the Lost Ark era of Spielberg, which kind of was, it was refreshing. I guess that's the best way to sum up the movie. It's a refreshing change of pace. It was like a refreshing little tribute to Spielberg. Like, yeah, that's good, and like a little fun fact. Or like, yeah, you can feel the Spielberg without being in your face. It's like, yeah, that's kind of nice. And I think the one last thing I really took away from this movie on just watching it after a while is that I got to tell you, I just seeing how well this turned out, and bear in mind they're having issues getting the sequel of this off the ground. So I don't know how this is probably not practical at all, but I got to tell you, I wouldn't be opposed to like doing a film like this, using like kind of a wet mocap and kind of doing it like as an animated film with character, essentially with human performances, exactly the way they did this movie. I wouldn't mind seeing kind of an Indiana Jones movie done in this venue. I got to be honest, like but down the line we could, if even without Harrison Ford, we get like that. There's a voice actor who does like he's the sound alike for Han Solo in the Lego Star Wars and various. It's not Keith Ferguson, but I think it's Craig. Sorry, not Craig Ferguson. It's Keith Ferguson. I think that's the actor. The point is one of the Fergusons. Like if they got him as like as Indiana Jones, like I could see like doing Indiana Jones films in this kind of capacity in the future, perhaps. But again, that's kind of a pipe dream, so I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. But I wouldn't be against it, honestly, if they did it like that.
Neither would I.
Yeah,
and especially considering how much technology has advanced since 2011.
And it would be a way of like not kind of corrupting the Indiana Jones myth. We could fill in the blanks, and it's like, okay, hey, here's another Indiana Jones adventure with kind of a younger Indiana Jones, and we're kind of just kind of it's basically like a return of the Cape Crusader style film for Indiana Jones. Could be kind of neat.
I really like this movie. I think if I were given the option of watching the original series or watching this movie, I definitely pick the original series. I feel like it's a lot more solid. It wraps things up really nicely. It's nicely paced and there's a lot of action. It's very enthralling. This movie is really great. I'd really like to see another one. I wish I would have seen this in theaters. I'm not sure why I didn't, honestly. But this movie, the performances are great. I love the performances. The animation, of course, is beautiful. They did a great job translating the cartoon type features into a three-dimensional platform. The directing, of course, was great. Great music, of course. Of course, not John Williams' best, but it's definitely not below the John Williams bar. Really solid movie. There's definitely flaws with it, but it's solid. It's solid.
Hey, Jacob.
There's not much more I can say that I haven't already. I mean, I would honestly like to see Spielberg and Jackson continue this. Like the plan was to have obviously Spielberg direct this one, Jackson direct the next one, and then both direct the third one. But I'd honestly like to see that plan come to fruition sometime. I mean, who knows? I mean, these people. I mean, they're both getting along in their years, and so if they want to get this thing off the ground, they should probably get it over with soon. Not to rush it or anything, because a rush project is never really good.
On his deathbed, Jacob.
I'm not saying he's on his deathbed. I'm just saying he's not exactly young anymore.
It's like the AI situation. We have to get it out now.
Well,
all right, I'm sorry, Jacob. I don't mean to tease you. Anyways,
I know, but I'd honestly like to see more of this kind of story. Like, especially considering the improvements in technology that have come forth since this movie came out, it'd be very interesting to see how they continue the story from here. And I anxiously await to see the next adventure of Tintin.
All right, folks. Well, that was the penultimate installment of Spielberg Month, and we only have one left. And folks, this next one's a biggie, and we're basically going to need all the group support we can get to get through this, because not only is this by far the longest Spielberg movie, it's also debatably the best Spielberg movie, but also the Spielberg movie that's toughest to sit through in a good way, in a very emotionally impactful way. And that movie, of course, is none other than
AI.
Schindler's List.
Oh.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, so much for the majesty we were going for. But thank you for undercutting all that, Sandy. Just
what were you saying,
so
Sandy?
helpful.
I'm sorry, I want to know. Would you like to tell the class your thoughts?
You were making this big emotional speech, and then I buttered in AI just so you were saying Schindler's List.
Oh, God damn it! God damn you! All right, we're gonna have a joke. No, we're gonna have a rule. No jokes on Schindler's List. All right.
Okay.
All right.
That's why we're gonna make one right here, Sandy. You're not on the list, Sandy. You're not on the list.
Yeah, it's like the Hero Season 1 ad campaign. Are you on the list? No.
Come on, Tiki. Come on, Tiki. Even Spielberg needed jokes to get through Schindler's List.
He did. He
Fair
called
enough.
Bob
Fair
Williams.
enough.
I mean, heck,
So Schindler's List is a big one, right, Trigon?
Oh, it's huge. It's gonna be. Oh, it's great.
I mean, I feel like it's not going to be an easy podcast to record. It's not going to be an easy podcast to get to. But I feel like if the four of us play our cards right, it's going to be a podcast that we can all be proud of to end Spielberg Month off on.
Think so.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. That's my goal. All right, folks. Well, that will do it until the final installment of this year's
Fumes!
Go stand in the corner.
Bad form, Steve.